Regular city council, in addition to the special, this one is the special technical, joint committee with the planning commission. You want to go ahead and let, our city manager, interim city manager.
I'm just gonna explain how we've got overlapping meetings here, and so that people aren't confused as to what's happening. We anticipate that this workshop will last more than 1 hour. Maybe we can get it done in an hour, we'll see. We anticipate, but at 6 o'clock, the city council has its regular meeting. So don't be surprised if at 6 o'clock, we ask you to recess the workshop while we convene the regular meeting of the city council at 6, and then immediately recess that to finish up the workshop. So a lot of be up and down, just so there's no confusion. And then it'd be appropriate for the city council to have a roll call, and I'll do that, and then Brian will do the roll call for the planning commission. How's that?
Sure.
Okay. So, Councilmember Cabrera.
Here.
Councilmember Corlejo.
Yeah.
Councilmember Chavez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez.
Here.
And the mayor is not yet here. Okay, thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Chair Cruz. Vice Chair. Was it Perez Aguilera?
Present.
Commissioner Forte,
Present.
Commissioner Nieto. And Commissioner Diaz.
All right, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we did the roll call, and let's do a pledge of allegiance. Let's all stand. We'll have our new planning commissioner go ahead and give our pledge. If you lead us, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, at this time, we're going to go ahead and let any public comment, any member wanting to address the council or on closed agency session, this is different, huh? Oh, on closed session items appearing on special agendas for people limited time. But we have no closed session, is that correct?
Special meeting, no.
No, all right, so then therefore, we must do that. And we see that our mayor has showed up, so I'm gonna go ahead and when you're ready, Mayor, let me know. I'll turn it over to you.
Go ahead, let
and
me
get
get ready.
adjusted there.
Yeah. Continue.
Just to introduce Brian or introduce the workshop.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, members of the City Council, Planning Commission, and members of the public. Thank you for attending tonight's joint City Council and Planning Commission workshop. My name is Brian Swanson, and serve as the Community Economic Development Director for the beautiful city of Soledad. We have the following department team in attendance: Ancia Vargas, our Economic Development and Housing Coordinator, Ariana Mora, our Land Use Planner, and Andrea Navarrete, our Administrative Assistant. All three have been critical to the success of the shipping container plan development. Our consultants in attendance this evening: David Mastenson from ELS Architects, Jack Leiter from Crafted Solutions, and Ron Sissom, who is on Zoom from EMC Planning. It has been a pleasure working with ELC Crafted Solutions in the EMC planning throughout this process. A quick background of why we're here. The city of Soledad owns 3 vacant lots located on Front Street between Soledad and East Street, south of Chavez Park. These parcels have been vacant for quite some time. In an effort to explore different ways the property could be used, staff held a special city council workshop on September 25th, 2021. At which time staff was asked to bring back to the council several options for the properties. We have discussed that Front Street is the community's living room, is where we entertain our guests and families in addition to finding comfort. It is a physical location that binds the soul of the community. Thus, focus on redevelopment of those parcels is the highest importance for downtown Soledad. On February 24th of 2022, a special joint meeting with the City Council and Planning Commission was held where staff presented the concept of the shipping container village for the vacant Front Street parcels. At that time, staff was instructed to pursue a proposal for the design of the project. ELC Architects was selected as a preferred consultant for the city to help with the architectural design and vision-making process of the shipping container village. On October 27th, 2022, staff and the consultant held 2 community workshops at Hartnell College to present the shipping container concept to businesses and residents. Staff had an additional workshop on November 14th of 2022 with business owners along Front Street about the project to receive further detailed feedback. Both workshops provided a presentation on creating a vision for the vacant parcels along Front Street and the intention of fostering a stronger sense of place, in addition to creating development opportunities on the parcels. The presentation further showed how shipping container villages across California have been used to create development opportunities, in which visuals were shown of containers and site plans. We also received over 500 responses on Facebook from the community about site design and the use of the locations. Due to timing this evening, we'll need to follow the following time segments, and Andrea will inform us when we reach the time limit for each item. ELS will provide a 30-minute presentation of the concepts of the project. After that, we'll have about 45 minutes of group discussion between the City Council and Planning Commission. We'll then go back to EMC to talk about the specific plan, the downtown specific plan, and what would need to be modified to that plan to accommodate the concept. It's going to be about 15 minutes. For about 15 minutes, we will discuss the presentation on the cost estimates and pro forma, which is at a very high level to provide context of the anticipated capital and operating costs and potential funding mechanisms. And at the end, we'll have a 5-minute or maybe 10 minutes section on next steps. The intention of tonight is that the City Council and Planning Commission choose one of the 3 site design options being presented this evening. The consultant will then refine the chosen option, in which the staff and consultant will prepare development objective statements and seek development proposals from private parties to implement the project. Eventually, the city would need to enter into an exclusive right to negotiate a potential redevelopment agreement. That is just a brief background on the project and why we're here. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to the consultant group to give a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for the commission and the council. I know how difficult it is sometimes to get everyone together. It's always appreciated. It's a great opportunity to talk about what could become in Soledad. And I just want to talk generally to build on what Brian said about the opportunity here. We have created some visions, and it is some visions based on input from the city and all of our discussions with the community and the business owners. This vision is something that can be taken out to the public and to developers, but it's not a final vision. The developer, the city, whoever decides to finally build this, they'll tweak it in their own way. So what we see tonight is sort of the first step in that process of realizing what could be this vibrant new center on Front Street. Share the screen for everybody. So I want to break this discussion into 3 parts, which is kind of what Brian alluded to. And we're going to go through the site and what the container options are from a vision standpoint that we've studied up to this point. And then we're going to have a brief discussion about that. And then we're going to follow and have a discussion about what happens with the planning and how the downtown Pacific plan plays into this container park project. And then in the end, we're going to talk about more specifically about the cost estimates we've had for the project and then an operating pro forma, so that we can actually talk numbers about what we can realize this project on the screen and what sort of revenue you can assume that you might get to be operating. So the site is fantastic. You know, when we drive down 101, and we were just commenting today when we were driving down Front Street how close the highway is. Like, you have amazing visibility, you get a ton of traffic past this. And it is the main street for Soledad, and most main streets are built out on both sides. This is a really interesting opportunity for the city to actually build that double-sided retail in that traditional downtown to create the activity that you want to see. And I think the container park can provide that sort of anchor at the end of Front Street to help facilitate that. And the existing site has some great trees on it, as well as the views. And the city's done a lot in terms of the Front Street improvements, the curves and the parking and the lights, all of the street furniture. So there's a great start to what's going on here. Now the site's really long, and when we looked at it, we felt that there's no reason for the city to develop a whole site in that park. You should land bank that land, part of that land, so that you can use it for another use. You can use it for another tenant. You can have a limited service hotel. You can have someone come in that can even build on the interview that we're doing with the container park. So when we looked at the way that the site laid out, we really liked the idea of pairing the container park with the Travis Park. So you could have a group of amenities, so the park could become part of the overall amenity. So as we thought about it, when we developed the design should be usable on either side, one place on the other side. So with that, we'll bring this to Jeff, who can talk a little bit about the opportunity and about the big projects.
Hi, everyone. Just a little background, Brian brought me in as part of the team. I'm an architect and I focus on developing food and beverage and entertainment types of destinations. And my background has been in, actually, I ran and operated a container village for a number of years, and I've consulted with a number of other clients in developing these kinds of projects. And they're quite unique in that the container villages, I mean, they're sort of like a kit of parts that you can assemble. But ultimately, what we're creating is a destination for people to spend time with their family and with their friends, and we're involved in placemaking, and I think that's it's an ideal project here. So first of all, what we're trying to do is we're trying to create an open space amenity for the residents here. So we're trying to activate some vacant land as part of a park type of experience, as well as a food and beverage draw. And creating a place for the city to be able to hold events and as a catalyst for various different kinds of festivals and things like that. We're trying to make this the it place in Soledad, and it's in the perfect location for that because it's right on Front Street. And we're trying to support the local businesses around here, because when we pull in more people and we activate this space, then what is it saying? All ships rise with the tide. So this is about activating the space, generating energy in this area, and then raising the value of everything around. And probably also significantly, we're trying to create this a destination for all of the travelers that are going up and down Highway 101. Because right now, there's certain reasons that people may get off the highway, but a lot of people probably go flying by and don't stop here. And I think this could become a real major draw for people to get off the highway. So this is the view from Highway 101, based on Google Maps, and as Dave just mentioned, it actually looks like it's kind of far away. We have a slide later on where we superimpose the designs in this kind of image, and it looks like it's a little bit further away. It actually feels a lot closer than this. I think it'll be much more noticeable. So what is a container development? Like I said before, it is we use these shipping containers as the vessel to sort of put together different functions like a kitchen or beverage service or potentially retail. But ultimately what we're doing is we're creating this place where people come together and they want to spend their time. And these are actually some pictures of the container project that I was involved with creating. And it was wildly active in that people would come, they'd bring their families here, they'd spend their entire Saturday afternoon in a space like this, and that's what it's really all about. It's about people coming, whether they've got their children and there's kids running around and they're trying to have some lunch with their friends, or whether there's people coming for like a singer-songwriter night or something like that. It's about this activation. And so there's a number of these that have been successfully set up around the country, around the world really, but just looking maybe around the US, there's a lot of these that can be very simple. Like for instance, on the left here, there's a simple food and beverage type of operation. Generally, when it comes to food and beverage, it's a little bit challenging to produce food from scratch in these, because we don't have like all the amenities a normal kitchen would have. So there's a lot of times there's the sort of the last 5 feet of food service, so to speak. So the food's actually prepared off-site at some location and it's brought in and it's packaged and delivered here or something like that. And beverage service here, so that's I forget where that is, but that's in California. So this generally it's important to have support the operation, the food and beverage operation, and I know a lot about that. But really what people are coming here for is the seating and the sale, the protection from the sun. Protection from wind that might be an issue. And the entertainment, and there's a lot of different kinds of entertainment vehicles, everything from cornhole to lawn darts and things like that. And of course, lighting is very important. Benefits have been used in these. So we've actually, I'll switch over to Dave when we talk about the survey.
Yeah, so,
This whole bit.
you know, when we talked to the community, we showed them a lot of the images, the types of images that Jeff just showed. And we also had the city go out with a survey, to find out what people liked in the community, what they were interested in seeing. So, and we heard a lot about great open space, grad. We talked about height, you know, people wanted to see height in the containers. There's a lot of love for the Tivoli string lighting you see in a lot of those images with beer gardens. Signage, you know, a lot of people like the sort of mural signage, things like that, things that really kind of celebrate the artistic nature of Soledad. So I think that's really positive and that's something we can build on. There were, you know, we asked questions about what type of colors and, you know, muted palette with highlight colors. And then with activities, you know, there was this desire to have various types of games, but I think the next slide is the most interesting one when it talks about what are the sorts of activities that people want to see. And if you just see how much interest there is generally in all of these, it just shows with the real thirst in Soledad to be able to provide sorts of events and activities that could occur in a single location. So it's staged for music, you know, 75% of respondents, covered seating, and outdoor movies over 60%. Annual festivals for farmers markets, you know, 70 to 80%. So, and you know, all of these are saying, you know, the community is telling us we need a place to have these events where we can bring our family on a regular basis. So what we've done is we've provided 3 different options. The first option is kind of a standalone, smaller option. The second option is a little bit larger. And the third option is how you can put it on the second option a little larger. So for that, I want Jeff, who's run one of these, to speak about the option.
So option one focuses on the creating a destination. And so we use as a guiding idea behind option one as it's a courtyard scheme. So in other words, it's kind of inward focusing. And it's about creating a destination for people to come to this particular place for entertainment or for food and beverage. It's not outward facing really. I mean, it can have an outward presence. Obviously, you'll see it from driving by, but it was about, as you'll see a little bit later, we've developed a barrier system so that it can be detected at night, so that it can be, you know, secured. It's not part of wandering through the city. It's a place where you just go for that particular, those hours that you're looking to come there. It's focusing on the dining, entertainment, and any retail products within the place. Place to meet people, musical performances, and just a place to come together with people. So as you'll see right here, the containers, the yellow containers on the bottom there are the food and beverage operation. And then we've got the retail on either side and then seating on the street. So it's all focused sort of in the middle here. That's where our seating is. And then it can be, as you'll see in a minute, it'll be there's gates that can go around. And then up here is the stage area. which is serviced by the seating. But Dave, if you want to go through the next slides here.
Yeah, so I think, what's great about the scheme, like Jeff mentioned, is that we have a gate around it that could enclose it during off hours. But then when you start moving towards Stephen Chavez Park, there's a series of program spaces. So the stage could actually be bifacial, face either way. We have a lot of different seating options throughout the site so that you can sit in an Adirondack chair, you can sit at a table. And then we have some berm seating, and then we like this idea, of nature play, so it's not a playground, but it has things that kids can climb over. I have a 5-year-old and 9-year-old, they can be held down for any amount of time, they have to run around. So this is a chance for mom and dad to have a beer, and the kids can run around, but it doesn't look like a playground. And then this becomes kind of the interface of Cesar Chavez Park, so this kind of bleeds in and becomes one larger space. And then if you see with all of these schemes, Kidder becomes the loading access, so vehicles can come down here and they do all the loading that they need to do in terms of servicing the retail and food and beverage tenants. So we have a bunch of views here. These are not next renderings of just views, but we wanted to give you a bit of a flavor about what these could be. So one of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to give you guys visibility to 101. So each one of these schemes has a certain arrangement of vertical 40-foot containers, which you can see here. Here, and those will be visible and they can be uplit at night from 101. We put a large sun cover in there because you guys get a lot of strong sun. I mean, this is one way it could be done. It could be done with sails. It could be done other ways, but this is one way of doing it. And it's enclosed. You can see the gate that goes around here, and all the seating is enclosed. And then we look at its presence on Front Street. You have this great front door on Front Street that has a lot of porosity. It feels like a retail storefront that works with everything across the street. And you drive down Kidder Street, and you see this vertical coming down Kidder Street. As you were coming up Front Street, you would be able to see those towers that become really strong markers. And then inside, you would have a good sense of intimacy. You have the tables and different types of seating. You would have the stage beyond. You have an opportunity for a bunch of different vendors. Wouldn't feel too big. I think it would feel fairly comfortable. And it provides a lot of different ways that vendors could create their spaces and interact with everybody. And then, this sort of concept of having some gate that could open up and feel very open when it's open hours, but then you can close off before security. So now I want to move on to the second option.
So option 2, we titled this one the Front Street Stroll. Because this was not so much a courtyard scheme. This is more of a linear type of scheme. Where the idea is that we would create a place here where people come into the city and they go for a walk around the area, and then they can dip kind of into the container village as part of their walk. So it's linear. It's not focused on one thing. It's about the the passageway through it. And so it's obviously focused on the food and beverage, but I think that we made it this is made a little bit bigger, and it's more linear, so that we can have more food and beverage vendors and be able to be in a position to offer more diversity of those vendors, rather than just having, for instance, the prior scheme was really about one or two operators. This scheme, we could have 3 or 4 operators, maybe even like some sort of monthly operator that comes in, so we get more diversity. And we have more activities because it's linear. There's more opportunity for multiple activities along the path, place to hang out for the afternoon. Reinforcement of historical heritage. We have an area at the end, one end of the park, which we'll see in a second, where we have an opportunity, some sort of site activation where we can talk about wine country, or we can talk about the history of Soledad or something like that. And there's potential for growth because it's linear, because it's not focused on one thing. And because it's linear, we can add on to it in the future. So there's potential to grow this. And appreciation of local arts and historical markers. We can sprinkle these little markers right through the whole thing. So this scheme, so you can see that this is more linear in that you dip into the park here, and you can enter around Soledad Street, exit around Kidder here and walk right through the whole thing. Again, we've got these vertical container towers, which serve that purpose of being able to see this project from not only from Highway 101, but other areas of the city. And we have multiple zones of seating along the path, which you'll see in one separate.
Yeah, so one of the things we want to point out with this scheme is we've done these sort of art pieces at the end of Kidder. So you would, when you go down Kidder, you would kind of see something that's very local art that's here. And then there's also an opportunity, to provide some art here as well. And so what this does is it really integrates more into the overall landscape park concept. And, it moves back the stage a little more, so you've got more depth for the stage. And it creates more of a really active side and a more passive side in terms of quieter place to sit, and you can have your kids play. And this is a really active, and there's seating in the sun, there's seating that is out in the open, depending on what the weather is like. So again, here we're showing, you can see the linear scheme. One of the things we heard in the survey was they want to see the verticality. So, we've shown some verticality with this, which gives it a little more height and a little more presence on Front Street. And then at the end of Kidder, you start to see these art boxes, and then we stacked 3 of these on top of each other, so we could do an art piece at the end of Kidder, which you can see better here. I mean, this is a great place. Like you can start your trip to Pinnacles here, and you can have that sort of information. It becomes a terminus for Kidder, and it becomes an activation point for the linear project that goes down Front Street. And then here, as you can see, there's no gated enclosure, so it really opens out into the rest of the park. It really opens out into the stage area where you can have vibrant performances. It's a place I think that even when it was not really busy, I think it'd be a really nice place to be. You could bring your kids. They could run around on the hills, and they could look at everything along the street. Finally,
Okay, so option 3 was a development of option 2. Because we maintained the linearity of option 2. But we've expanded on that in this. And so this was not so much, well, I shouldn't say it's not so much. It is a part of the journey through Soledad, but it's also talking to Highway 101. So we've made it larger. We've added on 3 additional towers, I believe, to really mark this for everybody driving up and down Highway 101 will see this. And so this is about creating this destination and making this part of the identity of what people think of Soledad when they're on the highway, when they're visiting, or when they're passing through or something. And it becomes a regional destination for because of that visibility, will become more of a regional destination for people that live in Salinas or King City or around the area. And we're leveraging the diversity of food and beverage by the number of containers that we can have and the activities that we have here. This would be a landmark on Highway 101. So one of the things that I neglected to mention in option 2 is a big difference between what we're doing in option 1 versus option 2 and 3 is that we've changed the way we're approaching food and beverage a little bit. So option 1, we ran the food and beverage out of those shipping containers, which is something that you can do, and it happens every day, but it has a lot of limitations, and I can speak from my operational background. It has tremendous limitations in what you can produce for food. And so option 2 and 3, we included this building structure right here that we then wrapped with these containers. And that building structure is actually just a basic CMU block building, but it becomes the kitchen, the actual engine for all the food production. So rather than trying to force food production to happen in a container, which has a lot of limitations and challenges, partially because of the size of the shipping containers doesn't work. It's very challenging to get all that equipment in there and get the floor sinks in that are needed for food prep. So all that food prep would happen in this basic building here, and then the containers would wrap around for the actual delivery of that food to the customers. So that was something I wanted to just bring up on this, and then you can see that we've got the 4 towers now. 3 of them are along the plan south of the site here. And those are facing Highway 101 to really give a strong presence, which you'll see in one of the upcoming renderings there.
And then from a landscape standpoint, we've got a very large area for food and beverage seating. Food and beverage now moves all the way up to the stage and the open lawn area. Feels very contained. If you have an event there, you're gonna get a lot of activity. And then this area is a little bit smaller, but still gives an opportunity to have a nature play and connect back to Cedar Shaw's Park. So it gives you, again, I think all of these give you a nice balance that when it's not open, there's still a lot to do there. And when it's open, it becomes that much more vibrant. And this, when we're talking about the opportunity on 101, this is the opportunity. I mean, in the evening, when this is lit up, this will be an icon on 101. And there's a lot of people. I mean, I grew up in Southern California. I've driven up here so many times. This will become one of those things where you're talking to a friend and saying, "Where are you?" I'm at Soledad.
Yeah.
Right? That gives you that place marker. So I think there's a real opportunity in any of these themes that verticality can help round your community from afar. And then when you're looking down, those towers have a great presence on space. There's not a lot of height out here, and that will make it a little bit unique. We provided not just this now, but these long trellises that provide a little shade back onto the vendors. And then there's still a great stage space. There's still a great lawn. I think it's still a fantastic experience. We've done a thing where we've used these containers up one container so that we can create shade and space beneath them for seating and for a little bar or retail opportunities. And you can see the presence of these stack containers or these vertical containers moving over. And then looking from the stage and then looking south, you get kind of a very grand view of how Front Street, is very active and you get pedestrians here, but it just bleeds into this space. So if you're walking on Front Street, you might just choose to walk through here and see what vendors are open and see what's available. And then from the stage, you've got a lot of length in terms of trying to get people to sit down. Anyone that's interested, you can sit on the lawn, you can stand on the lawn, and then you've got all the seating behind. So those are the 3 schemes, and I think we're doing pretty good on time.
You're doing great. We got 2 more minutes.
So we want to break here for discussions for all of you, just to kind of hear your thoughts on the schemes, what you think is working, what's not, and which schemes, we should move forward.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Jeff. Also, so I just want to be cognizant of the time. We do have a 6 o'clock meeting. Where's Ed? I think we do have a 6 o'clock meeting. We can pause and then come back, but
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we know that. So if we need to pause for a bit, I'd like to pause by 10 minutes before 6 so we can get ready for our other meeting and then come back to this meeting. Sorry, it's a little, we have our city council meeting as well. So I'll open it up for discussions in regards to the 3 different presentations, and I'll just monitor time in terms of discussion so we can hear from everyone. So we'll start with Councilmember Cabrera.
I have a question. Actually, I have 2, but I forgot about the other. But what are you planning to do? If I keep eating outside and
Oh, okay.
sometimes the wind is really bad.
Yeah.
So I can imagine already people going with a plate and so what are you planning? The other one is that because I'm looking at the images and all the containers are on the side of the freeway. Would it be possible to shift them around so that they protect from the people or the area from the wind?
Yeah, so it's a great question because we heard from the community that we put the issue on the site. So one of the things, like one of the primary ways we handle that is through landscape, through trees, and just existing trees on the site and adding more trees. But then also the containers themselves create that windbreak. I mean, there's always going to be an issue there, but the landscape will help break that speed down and the container will provide better wind protection. And in the top scheme, that first scheme, there is a little bit of a gated enclosure, which also should cut down the wind. But we've been on the site in the evening and yeah, it can be.
The wind comes this way.
Yeah.
So how,
Well, I think, you
the
know,
containers will,
we are hoping, you know, that, you know.
Oh, the
massive
trees and
will
the-
really help break it. I mean, landscape is usually the best way, because the containers are very flat, it's kind of like bends the wind, it doesn't diffuse it so much, whereas the landscape really helps diffuse it.
okay,
But in design that is linear, the wind just going to pass through because that's the way the wind comes. It's like a tunnel. If they are the other, other position, it may be going to be a windbreak. That way it's going to create just a funnel.
because it comes this way.
The wind
So it's
just
gonna go
go.
inside, yes.
Yep,
Yeah.
so.
So, yeah. Yeah, no, thank you. So I know when, obviously, you heard that. So when is a factor? So how do we minimize some of those, if it creates a tunnel, if it doesn't, like some of the wind patterns, right? Especially when it's heavy wind after 2 o'clock or, when we start getting the wind here.
Yeah.
Just minimizing some of that and maybe other barriers that could be added to be able to stop kind of that flow of the wind coming through. But
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I mean, maybe that means that, there's something here. These are pretty big. I mean, but maybe something in the corner happens here to help provide a little more break in that direction.
yeah, thank you, Councilmember Chavez. And then I think Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm not saying no, that, understanding that it's gonna come straight through that spot. So it's gonna come straight through here. So I don't know if we could, you could create something that's gonna give some areas that you can still see through. Whether it's those containers where it's split on the sides and then you have a tunnel coming through here. But it can get very heavy and it does get heavy at times. That wind picking up at 1:30 comes summertime. That one's gonna start up every day.
For sure.
And then I'll blow like that, and then it's gonna calm down about 8 o'clock, right about in there. Then you're gonna have a real nice evening. But, and then you fire up, you put up some of those patio heaters, and things like that will work out in those areas. I like the flow, I like, initially, conservatively, option one. But ideally, if we're gonna do it, I'd like to see something like number 3. With the towers and pulling that, because we do have, all we hear about is that, this great vantage point of 101, all these cars passing every day. And what are we pulling them in? Well, they're gonna come see the pinnacles and we'll put, the Chavez Park down. And so this way, it's gonna really focus that. And then I don't know how many times I heard, where are you from? Soledad. Oh, yeah, we drive by there, going down south. And but there's no reason to pull it. So that would, ideally that would work and of the 3, I like the 3.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez, Councilmember Chavez.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the same thing about the wind. I think that I was just gonna ask the question, when did you guys come and visit the sites throughout?
Well, it was interesting. We came before we had a community meeting, and I think that was about 4 or 5. And it was really mild, and this was in January, right?
Yeah.
And it was really mild, and then after the meeting, we came back to the site, it was really windy, and that was probably 7. Like it was super windy, so we, it's definitely something that has to be.
And what I would say is that March through October is the time when the wind really picks up. January is actually not a time where. And, I think that is something that should be considered. And I know that we're trying to figure out how we can put a stage, because that is a great option for our community. But that is, as Planning Commissioner Nieto mentioned, that is a tunnel right there that we're creating. And so we've got to figure out how to, I know the trees will do some diffusion, but there has to be some kind of, angular, possibly containers that are put angular to kind of use the trees to diffuse, and then it hits those containers as well, so that it kind of spreads out. I think that's the better option, I think, than anything else. I think that my option, and I'm normally not that conservative, but for me, I prefer right now option 2, just because it gives us that option to grow it even bigger, because I see the design being exactly the same. So it's just adding some more containers and a couple of little things, and maybe it could be a combination of 2 and 3 where we do add that many towers. But we do less containers or something, just to see if it's working. If we were as a council and as a commission to decide that we want to move forward with a project like this.
Thank you, Councilmember, Jimenez. Councilwoman Corralejo?
Yes, I just feel the same. I think this is a great idea. I honestly love it. Same concern about when it comes to the wind. I don't know if there's like we have sound walls. Is there like a wind wall that we can make maybe? When it comes to the options, I really like option 2 or option 3. I feel option 1 would be a disservice at 7.5 million. You know, to our taxpayers as well as to our entrepreneurs and business owners. You know, I think our location is great right there, and I really like also the art aspect of it, of bringing art. I would love to see the art be something more specific to our town, to our city. You know, like maybe landmarks, art of landmarks, art of something like that, not so much like, you know, I guess things that are not specifically to our local, and we do have a lot of great artists, you know, that I know would just love to come and do that for us. Yeah, so thank you for your presentation as well.
Thank you.
I have a
Any other comments?
I like option number 3, obviously the most expensive one. I don't like the fact that it may create a tunnel, you know, when, in that area. I'm not sure I buy into the containers, so I'm trying to understand who or why we're doing containers and not just building.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Sure,
First, like
sure.
that, I think we can talk about why we're doing that instead of, so I know there was a lot of, from my understanding and some of the history, those lots have been sitting there vacant for many, many years. We've tried to sell them in multiple occasions and we haven't received any responses. So it's looking at how can you develop, and obviously some of the more brick and mortar is really difficult because of the train tracks and what is allowed through that, because we still have to contend with Union Pacific and their regulations. So then it was going back, well, how can we utilize those empty lots to be able to bring more people into downtown and to really bring in more elements of entertainment, walkable communities. And so Brian was actually the one that came when he came and he presented, hey, this is, you know, another possibility because we haven't been able to do anything in the prior years with those lots and nobody wants to buy them. So what can we create there? So it was the concept of the container village. And I know some of us had seen it in other places. I know they have them in San Francisco and they use them for, you know, for retail, and they have some in Paso Robles too, and they use them for different venues. And I've actually saw one up in Coachella Valley, and it was actually really nice because it has a whole entertainment, you know, what we're talking about here. So in terms of utilization of underutilized sites, this was one of the possibilities. So that was kind of, Brian, if you
It's a
want to
site
add.
so the property is not deep, so
Mhm.
it's site
Yeah.
constrained, and so
Okay.
containers, they fit well on smaller sites. Like
Yeah.
Fieldwork Brewery down in Monterey,
Mhm.
small property, but they are able to create a lot of synergy from 2 little containers there. So that was kind of the intent. What's low cost construction, but also can you flip them around, and
Mhm.
that's where we came from.
Okay.
That's about 80 feet, I think.
Do we
I think I think the only thing that comes to mind, and I hope it doesn't happen, is that people see the containers and want to do graffiti on them.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
I-
Create their art.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that's what, yeah, go ahead, Councilor Cabrera.
I was wondering if it is possible, because I like the number 3 option as well, but I was wondering if it is possible to move the stage to the other side and bring the containers in the corner to that side so that we can protect that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I?
Yes.
Let me, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, Commissioner Nieto has, he did his own rendering.
It's just moving the kitchen to the other side, that's all it takes.
Yes.
Okay, but they did open it up at the beginning. No?
It was,
No, they-
other things, not.
So,
Oh.
yeah, the way there's.
I think it might be
It's
beneficial.
two-way, so you could have a show towards, see the shot, or you could actually have a one-way stage and wall the back of it, and then the stage becomes part of that one wall. You know, and that's-
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you. So, I'm gonna break for a few. I have some comments. I'll make my comments and then I will break to gain some public comments, so we can, have public comments on the discussion. And then we'll bring it back for additional comments and recommendations. And, if we're ready to move forward, if not, we'll pause and then we'll come back. Okay, so for my comments, yeah, thank you so much. I like option 2 as well, but option 3, I think option 2 for me is, it gives us the ability, and I know when we had this discussion, was that we have a lot of micro businesses. And really being able to support our micro businesses, how do we do that? We don't have the, we don't have spaces. Before, we had talked about, just having a big area where we can have, some of the micro businesses, because some of them may not be able to lease a space or to have a space that they can lease it and come and do, prepare and do whatnot. So I think for me, the option 2 gives us that possibility of looking at more micro business use, along with, obviously, hopefully we get some of the Vintners Association as well to be able to do wine tasting and that. And I think that's what, for us, when we talk about tourism and really being able to be a destination, is having the ability now to have sites, right? Where we can ask people to come now to the city because we do have availability. So I think option 2 creates that, kind of, location to be able to do that. Just obviously with some of the modifications that were discussed in terms of some of the wind. I think the other thing for me too is, you talked about the trees being replaced, and I just, for anything that we're going to build or to bring into the trees, we've had, especially in Front Street, some of the trees that were planted many, many years ago have uprooted and have caused a lot of damage on the sidewalk. So I mean, if we're gonna plant trees, I just want to make sure that, obviously arborists are probably gonna come and provide us with which ones are the trees that are suitable for our area. But just to take that into consideration, because we've had a lot of issues with some of the existing trees that we have. And adding some of those elements that are more native, to be able to have some native plants and flowers, and that I think is really important. The pillars, I just don't know. I mean, I like the fact that we have huge pillars, but it's pretty, I mean, it's, it's a different concept, because I think it's pretty industrial. And I'm not sure, like, the historical sense of Soledad, we're doing a facade improvement. And so with that is, how do you tie in some of the elements that we already have currently, and then tying them in with this space, so it doesn't look like out of place. Like, we have these big, massive pillars, but that are more industrial, yet our city is really not. We don't have an industrial feel to it. So I don't know what that would look like, but just kind of looking at it, I like the concept of having some, something huge to really have those landmarks. But I'm just having still some trouble just with these big pillars that are just pretty industrial looking. And if we can tie it to some of our historical already sense, I think that would be really good. And engaging, I think for me, with the art component, something that we've talked about is really bringing in those elements of art. We have a lot of local artists, but also engaging some of our art council that's already working with some local artists. They already have the resources, the framework to be able to integrate some of that. So there is local art. So I like the fact that we can have people, when they're on the way to Pinnacle, stop by here and have some of those elements there, right, of Pinnacles and who we are as a community and our history. So I think for me, option 2 is my, what I would like. But if option 2 also option 2 also includes a kitchen operation piece, right? Because I think that's really essential, especially when we're talking about micro businesses and supporting our micro businesses. So those are my comments. So let me stop here for a minute. And then let me take it out to public comment, and then I'll bring it back to the council and the commission. And then if we still have more discussion, we'll pause. We'll start our 6 o'clock, and then we'll go into recess, and then we'll come back. Okay. So at this time, any members of the public that are here with us that would like to make comments? Yeah, absolutely. So you can have you come to the podium.
Thanks very much for being here and for chatting with us. This is like, I was very excited when I saw these plans. I moved here in 2018, so certainly not here for as long as many people have, but I've had a lot of people, I have friends visit from San Francisco, from my hometown in Michigan, from everywhere. I've had people visit me from almost half of the US states. A lot of that is tied to the fact that Pinnacles is increasing in popularity, and the west side specifically is being discovered as the prettier, it is the better side. Discover that, I think, a lot of people are discovering Soledad as well. And yeah, I'm just so excited because I think this will capture so much of that pass through. We have lines of people that come to visit the park, and the line is over an hour and a half, and they'll ask, like, what can we do in the area kind of thing, like, I mean, 15 minutes away, there's a spot to hang out, and I mean, that's just fantastic. This area is like, this area is, Shalom Vineyard is like an incredibly storied and high quality winery, among many others, but just like, I think this is such a gathering space. I really like the option 2 and 3 for the sake of the flow, the stroll. I think one, to me, and I don't mean this too aggressively, but one felt very cagey. However, I definitely understand the concern about how you utilizing and like the idea of like wanting it to flow, like the energy to flow and not feel cagey. Obviously, that also kind of permits like wind to flow. So I think, yeah, it's definitely going to be a challenge to allow kind of the energy in the space, have it be green, have it be open, have it be, children are playing, music is being performed, whatever, allow that open space and energy to flow without, breaking that energy with wind barriers. Something that I did back in Michigan when I was working on a green alleyways design project to try to better use some of the alleyways in a couple of cities in Michigan, was we had we had like these kind of artistic, these walls that would break up. They were only maybe like 8 feet wide, 6 feet tall, and they were kind of placed in a way, and that was to help kind of break up the view shed of was very not appealing area, but that could help with wind blocking as well. Graffiti concerns are definitely an issue. That's something we see even at the park, people paint on rocks. So yeah, certainly I feel like that's just an inevitability with anything. But yeah, I think that this is option 2 and 3 are I think where I would lean. For anyone who would like just some further examples as well, I was thinking of there's a place in Paso Robles that I stop through every time I'm driving, and it's called Roots on Railroad, and they've done a phenomenal job of exactly what we're drawing up here, and it's just such a lovely space. They just took like a corner lot, it's right visible, very similar to ours here, where it's it's not only the face of Soledad, where when you're driving past it one, you can see the mountains, you can see the pinnacles, you can see the fields. It's a very beautiful natural area, and then you'd see this right in front too.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. And yeah, we have 3 minutes, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your comments. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so at this time, do we have anybody on our Zoom that wants to make any public comment?
I do, and one have Frank.
Okay. Okay, Frank, do you want to mute yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Yeah, I think either 2 or 3 is a good option, but when it comes to these containers, I think it's going to be a really good add to Soledad, especially for the small businesses that are trying to come up and be actual business. I think it would be like a good start away for someone who could not afford to put, drop $2,000 or $3,000 at one time to go afford a space rent. And maybe these space rents will be more affordable, and they can get all the knowledge they need, like as new business owners, because there is a lot of new in-home businesses that, that are starting to do stuff, sell cakes, and they sell a lot of stuff. There's, balloons. There's just a bunch of young entrepreneurs out there that are on our page, and and there's probably at least 5 or 6 of them that have business licenses that are in home. So I think that would be a good start too. And like somebody was saying about bands, I mean, I think if you have a band there every weekend and maybe even during the slow time, maybe you might not get a slow time. I think it's a great idea, the containers. I think it's going to be awesome. And I think it'll bring a lot of, revenue to the city also. If you can get the spots rented, I don't think there would be a problem for renting the spots for people to do business out of. And I think it'll be also good for nightlife also. When you're going down the freeway, like people say, you'll see the lights and stuff. I think it'll be awesome. I think it'll be good for small businesses so they can get their feet wet, learn from their mistakes, but also grow at the same time and become more better at what they're gonna do. And I love the idea. I hope you guys figure it out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any other public comments? Okay, well, thank you. So what we're gonna do now at this time, we are going to go into our regular city council. We don't have to leave. We're gonna sit here. And we'll just start, we'll commence our city council meeting and then we'll recess. We'll come back to the workshop and then we can finalize our discussion. We have 20 more minutes or so, and then we'll go back into the public city council meeting at 6:30. Okay, you're good. Okay.
It's in Wales, it's pretty interesting.
Okay, so we have about a few more minutes.
I think it's a great place to open up a kite shop.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the opportunity for fundraisers.
Annual events, winning cuts,
Yeah.
one of those and like that.
So you want to pause? We'll pause. So you can have your comments on record.
Wine event, and pause for that's gonna work, but
Is it gonna
they're
be
trying
long?
to do their places now.
Yeah.
The wineries don't wanna share that
So we
business
can open up the
and do their
meeting.
tasting there at this point. They're sitting there for it and.
Just one more minute.
Right.
And so
Let
that's.
me get them. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the City of Soledad Joint City Council, Successor Agency Housing Authority, and Successor Housing Agency City Council meeting of Wednesday, April 19th. Today is 6 o'clock, so I now call to order our regular meeting of the City Council at 6 p.m. So we will, if we can get roll call, please.
By a silent roll call, all members of the council are present.
Thank you. So I will now recess into our regular meeting so that we can rejoin the workshop that we were part of along with the Planning Commission, and then we'll return to our regular meeting of the City Council at 6:30, where we will open up for, we will recess to close. We have a closed session item, and then we will reopen for our public meeting. Okay, so we will recess at 6 o'clock. Okay, now we will go back into our joint planning commission meeting workshop.
So is that the end of the comment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll go down to Vaughn.
Okay, so One of the questions that, we've been wondering ourselves through this process, is something that I think has been brought up with the group, is what does it mean? What is it, how does this work with the downtown Pacific plan? Entitlements? So for that, we're lucky enough to have Ron Sisson here for EMC planning, who is a specialist in this area. So a few slides for him, and he's going to talk us through it. So Ron.
David, thank you. And good evening, everybody, commissioners, council members. It gets me excited seeing this happen too. So I share your enthusiasm. Unfortunately, I have to bring you some of the more boring aspects of this whole process, but important nonetheless. So, our role in this was to kind of take a look at what the city's general plan and the specific plan says. As David mentioned, it is the downtown specific plan that is the land use and development regulation guidance for this area. So our goal was to kind of take a look at that and see, what would it take to get a project like this through an approval process, hopefully in as streamlined a manner possible, hopefully in some way that might reduce costs or reduce time to the extent possible. And to really try to understand what the sort of pathway options are to get something like this approved. So I think one thing to note about the downtown specific plan is that it is quite prescriptive. And Dave, if you can go to the next slide, I'm sorry, I didn't mention that. It is quite prescriptive. It's very specific. Mayor, you mentioned something about, about this being an industrial look and sort of a different kind of beast relative to, what the town may have envisioned in the past, especially downtown. And the specific plan is quite tailored to the nature of the downtown and its historic past and its art and architecture. So let's just say, a long story short is something like this does not fit well, or probably wasn't ever really contemplated in the downtown specific plan. So go ahead, David, if you would, next slide. So the site is within the downtown core portion of the specific plan. Certainly the nexus is this language in bold, which is sort of the vision for the downtown core. Vibrant range of land use activity, retail, restaurants, entertainment, lodging, etc. So, having something that activates the downtown like this certainly is smack dab in the middle, I think, of what the specific plan was hoping would happen downtown. Does the container project, as we're looking at it now, sort of meet the standards and the concepts in the specific plan? Well, I think we can fairly well say it doesn't, but we don't have all the details about building height and how the signage would work to know at this point precisely how it works, or it may not work, but we certainly can glean that from the language in the specific plan. So this next little piece is really about, so how does something, get approved in the specific plan area, in particular in the downtown core? And what are some pathways that approvals can happen, and what kind of review do they require? Just some real quick notes about this, that projects that are less than 10,000 square feet only require architectural review. They do not require planning commission approval. There are uses that require a minor use permit versus a conditional use permit. The first only requires community development director approval. The second requires planning commission approval. But the most likely end use types in here that we would consider, I believe, and David, you might have to correct me if I'm wrong, are food and some beverage and maybe some art and maybe some retail. Those kinds of uses don't necessarily require heightened review under a conditional use permit. Most of those can be approved with a minor use permit. I do make one note here that pubs, if you will, and certainly I suppose a beer sort of pub or a facility here might be considered a pub type, does require a little heightened review under a conditional use permit. Go ahead, David. There are some options for looking at creating some flexibility in the downtown specific plan standards. There are a couple of minor and major variance opportunities where the standards in the plan can be modified by up to 20%. And as an example, if there was a height limitation for buildings in this downtown core area, the community development director could, on his own in this case, provide a 20% increase. If it was 50 feet, it could go to 60 feet at the community development director's discretion. There's a major variance that allows for something greater than 20% from the standards, and that's a planning commission discretion option. Okay, but I think really the real upshot here is that none of the building types or architectural types or street frontage types or signage types or any of the critical components of design and development standards in the specific plan can this project fit neatly under. Okay, so the notion is at this point that to get this thing through the process in a way that best meets its needs would likely be a specific plan amendment, wherein perhaps a new building typology is included in the specific plan and standards associated with that building type for height and setbacks and street frontage and signage and things of that nature are integrated into the plan specifically to accommodate a project type like this. Okay, that amendment process would require architectural review. There'd be a recommendation to the community development director, who would then, forward it on to the planning commission, and ultimately the city council would have the ultimate discretion in that kind of process. Okay, I will make a quick note here that the specific plan does have a note about a shared parking facility on the lot adjacent to this on the south. I don't know, David, if we've looked at the parking standards or parking demand in any detail. I just wanted to bring this up because that theoretically could be an important component of making this work, perhaps, if we can't get on-street parking that's sufficient to meet, the needs of this project. And there may be, if there's some concern with parking conflicts with existing retailers, on Front Street, et cetera. So that's just kind of a side note that's not specifically related to this project, but could be could be an important component of making it happen. Next slide. So again, I think the first two bullets we just kind of talked about. I don't really think there's a way to streamline this in a way that makes the approvals happen as quickly and cost effectively as possible, because the kind of design flexibility that this project requires does not fit neatly within the box of the specific plan. So again, I think the amendment process is really what we need to pursue here. It also allows heightened public review, allows design flexibility, but it does take a bit more time and have a little bit more cost. I wanted to quickly review the whole environmental review process ID here. Some of you may or may not be familiar with the California Environmental Quality Act. This would be a project that requires environmental review. It is possible that we may be able to streamline that review based on the information in the environmental impact report that was prepared for the specific plan. If this project doesn't wind up having new or more significant impacts than are already evaluated for development as it was proposed in the specific plan, then hopefully the environmental review here can be pretty brief and fairly cost effective. So that, I just wanted to raise that point. So that's really the overview here. Of course, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, thank you for that. So just a quick question on your last point on the environmental impact review, on the review that's needed, the environmental. So I know that one of the lots was designated as a park and go, right? I think that was a concept many years ago to be able to do that and to facilitate people going to Pinnacles or other kind of, so do you know already, have you looked at the environmental impact report for the specific plan to verify if this is going to be more, if it's gonna trigger an environmental impact report because it wasn't a use that was, I mean, obviously it wasn't a use that was anticipated, but is it gonna be increased impacts?
Right. My assumption is, and I note here possibly the case because I didn't want to create too many expectations, if you will, by the language that I used here. But my sense is that, remember that the specific plan assumed some more intensive types of development uses, like brick and mortar buildings that are retail. We don't really know, I shouldn't say retail. It assumed some mix of uses or some types of uses downtown on these lots that probably has no greater intensity of use than would this type of project, okay? The exception, the kinds of things that might give rise to effects, environmental effects that were not already evaluated probably are mostly related simply to the design aspect of this project, i.e. building height or something of that nature that may need to be higher than what the specific plan contemplated, given some of the monument sort of concepts that are included in the design. So long story short, do I see anything off the top that is obviously an anomaly here? No, especially across those kinds of issues that normally give rise to significant impacts that do trigger EIRs. I don't see those kinds of things being any more intensive or problematic here than would have already been assumed in the EIR for the kinds of development that was assumed.
Yeah, thank you for that. My last question on the EIR is, does the EIR have I mean, can we still use it given the fact that it's been, you know, over 20 some years? Do we do, or how long is it?
It's only
13?
been 20, yeah, go ahead.
Many?
I'm sorry, Brian.
No,
okay.
2012, and so
2012?
it is a baseline, the baseline's been set, but there would have to be, if there is amendments or addendums, we'd have to make sure that the new VMTs looked at. And
Right. There are some things that have changed since then, but again, for those kinds of variables, I wouldn't expect this project to be highly problematic. And yes, you can use that EIR, but part of this process in environmental review is to identify if and how the world has changed since then. And given those changes, are there issues with this project that may not have been anticipated at that time because the world has changed, so to speak?
Got it. Yeah, thank you for that.
Sure.
Any other comments from the planning commissioners or our council members? Councilmember Chavez?
In regards to that, I think if I recall correctly on the specific downtown plan, part of the brick and mortar that was being planned, or at least was in concept being talked about, were two-story buildings on Front Street there, where there would be the possibility of new retail, of new restaurants, in addition to that, a courtyard. So the idea originally was kind of a U, so that you would block the wind, kind of. And I think if I recall correctly, we had been talking about possibly that would be where the movie theater could come. We were talking at the time with Hartnell as well about possibly putting Hartnell campus there to try to bring life into downtown. But right off the bat, as soon as the downtown specific plan came out, and we started having serious talks with Hartnell, they came out, looked at the site and said no. So, yeah, I mean, if I recall correctly, those are the conversations and the kind of use that we were talking about at the time.
Okay. More significant impacts. Okay. Any other comments? So I just have my other comment in regards to parking, because I know obviously parking is an issue. We're already limited in downtown in terms of our parking. And so just kind of taking that into consideration, I know that we have on the going southbound, that parking space there by the now new economic development building where the clock tower is. But if for this, obviously this is going to require a lot more parking, right? Because it's, I mean, if we're talking about, especially when we have live events and music and whatnot, it is going to bring a larger crowd, and that's our hope. And so with that, we know that parking in downtown is not enough. So what is the other elements? I mean, I think it's important to be able to look at the parking factors and how we're going to mitigate the parking as part of the design.
It's not possible to build a parking lot in part of the parcel.
Would it be
I think you need to speak louder so
Yeah.
the microphone.
It's possible to build a parking lot in part of this parcel.
So remember, we're focusing on downtown development, and so downtown. We shouldn't overpark downtown. We have a parking lot that's quite underutilized right now near the Gateway Center.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so we wanna push people to park there and walk, and it's not that far of a walk.
No, no.
And yeah, so we want to make sure the highest and best use of the land on Front Street is used for activities, businesses. And so parking is definitely a topic to talk about, but I think we want to establish the downtown feel and it's okay to park and walk a block and a half.
My comment was in line with the thinking that the space is not enough, or maybe it's going to bother the already crowded spaces for the business in the other side. That's why.
Yeah,
I mean, parking is gonna be an issue. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I know we want to ensure that there's a walkable community and that's what we want to build, but at the end of the day, if we're gonna bring in more people, it's looking at some of those parking alternatives, right? And looking at, you know, even the parking space that we have by the Gateway Center, what is 50? I mean, is that accommodate like about 50
At least,
spaces,
yeah.
you know, at least 50? So, I mean, that's 50, but we're talking about what our other, I think for me is really looking at, because it will come up, especially when we have, you know, events during the daytime, and this is not gonna be strictly evening events, right? You know, we want it to be utilized
yeah,
more than that. So just looking at that, and it's not, you know, obviously it doesn't, it's not something that for me, at least I'm gonna say it's not a go, but it is a mitigating factor. How do we really look at alternatives for parking as we're building this? And whether it be, you know, maybe creating, I know we talked about 2-hour zones in our parking area in downtown or other areas, you know, on the side streets. How do we look at that? And is there any possibility of creating some type of alternative parking you know, that we currently don't have?
yeah. And I know one of the impediments to the development of the sites was that a brick and mortar store didn't have enough parking on the site. They couldn't fit enough parking on the site, and so you know, we don't want to take up too much on the site, but we have to be cognizant of making sure that the existing businesses aren't overburdened with people parking in front of their stores, and having limits for parking is probably going to be very important to help the businesses along.
Also, in this same line of thinking is the EV.
EV chargers,
Yeah, it's a need now, it's not a luxury. And every weekend you see the end of town, the Chevron is full all the time.
Yeah,
So it's a necessity to put some charges in there.
and I think we are. Is that
And
right?
but if you do that, you are going to limit the spaces that you have right now. If you have 50 and you have to provide 8 or 10.
Yeah,
Then you are going to have to replace those. Or
yeah.
create more in the other side.
People are walking from Chevron, Tesla to
Yes.
downtown Soledad.
Yes.
And so we're seeing that. And so
Yeah, but
people
instead
will-
of having 8, you have 18 or 28,
Yeah.
it will be more people stopping in Soledad.
Right. I do
Yeah,
want to
if-
be mindful of the time.
Yeah,
We
6:18.
do have the aspect of the financials that we want to talk about still.
Oh, okay. So we'll move on.
8 spaces. Is our income at 6:30?
6:30.
6:25, about 6:25. Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna go quickly through the final, so everyone has it in the package, it was just good to get, I want to talk about it generally now, just talk about the pro forma. This is a really interesting part of how we think about it. So we went out and do a cost estimator and we had the 3 schemes estimated. But at the same time, we knew a contractor, one out, one hand, that is doing a very similar development right now. And so they were going to do a cost estimate for option 1, just a container park only. So we could take the 2 and kind of see how they were lining up. I just want to talk generally about the chart here. You see, not intending to be able to read these numbers. I'm just trying to lay out what is there. The 3 options are spread across horizontally. And then in each option, we've broken out the cost of the landscape park area versus the container park area. So you really have a granular look of how this is thought about. And then if you take just taking the option 1, for example, if you look at the subtotal cost, that's before the contractor contingency. This is the subtotal is the materials and the labor. And then after that, you get the contingency and the general requirements, things like that. The percentages used here are very typical from the industry standard. But there's 2 other ones. There's a design contingency that's 20%, might be a little high. You know, it's really early on, so cost estimators are very concerned about being accurate, but that's very high. And then this was escalated. We asked them to escalate it out to November 24, because the cost of materials and labor has been going up. It's settling down finally, but we want to take that into consideration. So when we look at just option 1, for instance, the container only, one hand gave us a low bid and a high bid from what they thought it would be. And Cumming, our cost estimator, gave us a bid of $5 million. So Cumming came in almost exactly between their low and their high. So this gives us a lot of confidence in terms of what the numbers are as we look across all of them. And so when we look across all 3 of the schemes, now these numbers are now inclusive of the whole park area and the container together. This is, 7.5 million for option 1, 8.6 for 2, and 10.2. I stripped out that design contingency in the application just so we can all have apples to apples. So, this is the capital cost to actually get us there, and so I want to hand it over to Jeff really quickly to talk through the pro forma of operation.
Yeah, so, this is one of the things I specialize in doing is looking at, running off performance of various food and beverage, types of operations. And where I start on this sort of thing is with the potential revenue. And I first, what I did to arrive at these numbers is I first did a survey of restaurants in King City, Soledad, and Salinas. And I sort of compartmentalized what the average price for meal, various different types of meals, north of Soledad, and south of Soledad, and then merged all of that together based on populations and the number of people we're expected to draw from these areas to arrive at what we call the food and beverage industry a cover number, which is the expected or anticipated basket ring for every single guest. So 4 people come, that's 4 covers. And so I arrived at through a lot of averaging, which I have this big document here if anybody's interested in looking at it later. I arrived at, I think, $22.75 at a cover. And that includes any kind of beer purchases, beverage purchase, plus any kind of meals that are being sold here. And then what I did is I looked at what kind of universe are we looking at from the number of people that are surrounding around here? How many people do we expect to draw from Salinas? How many people are going to be coming here on a regular basis? How many people are going to be coming every, let's say, 180 days from Soledad? And basically looked at what the cover is for different age demographics also. So obviously the 25 to 44s are spend a little bit more than the older folks for some reason, but that's the way it works out. So there's a lot of averaging that went into this, and I ultimately arrived at, I did a high-low and arrived at between 2.2 million and 3.5 million in revenue that we could expect. Oh, and the other thing that I looked at is also a number that we could expect from drawing people off of Highway 101 that are driving by. And that number is in there as well. And then what we do for retail is we basically look at retail as the draw, because a lot of people are going to spend money on retail, but only because they come here for a sandwich or something like that. And so we look at retail as a number that is a percentage of the food and beverage. And so once we get this revenue number, everything under COGS, which is the cost of goods sold, and expenses, is very easy to figure out after that, because we have very solid metrics on what businesses spend, and I can plug that in here. This is all based on a combination of various metrics and what I've seen in other restaurants. And so we're looking at, as an operator, if we were to think about this as maybe a flagship operator that comes in and runs the whole thing, and then maybe some retail here, we're lumping everything together, and we're looking at maybe an EBITDA net number of between $125,000 and $200,000. But that's not really what's important. That means that we have a positive income on this. What's important for your perspective right now is really how much rent do we think we can get from this? And benchmarking that at about 9%, which is pretty average, especially for operators potentially taking a risk in coming in here. So I think 9% is good. Sometimes you can get 10. Some of these lifestyle centers, you can get 10, 11, 12% rent. But let's say 9%, that gives us between 219 and 348,000 a year. And if we use the metric that roughly 45–50% of that rent typically goes towards the operating costs. And so the number value that's left over, if we were to figure this out, just hypothetically, 3% annual percentage yield, and putting that in a bank account, getting 3% annually. We're looking at a 20-year payoff of between $7 and $11 million. Which
For the capital accounts.
yeah. And that goes towards the development costs here, so. This is really just a sanity check in what we think, how the whole thing would pencil out,
Okay,
and I'm a minute over, so.
yeah, thank you. Sorry, I'm just trying to navigate through the time here. Thank you. I have a quick question and not so much on some of the numbers. Obviously, you're giving us some of the projections, right? And of what some of the revenue can look like. Jeff, you mentioned you operated something like this, so I think conceptualizing it now, what is the best mechanism to be able to have this under operations, one person operating it? Or obviously that we want multiple, we want this to be able to be utilized for our micro businesses and multiple uses. But I just wanted to make sure I understand, the city is not, the city will not operate it, right? So does the city need to go out now to be able to have an operator of this container village? Because I think that's something we haven't discussed. We're all excited about the container village, but in terms of operations, then that's gonna require us going out, getting someone to operate it.
I think that the best case scenario with something like this is to have what's called a flagship operator. And so that flagship operator is the one, what you need is you need somebody who ultimately has all of the accountability for this operation. Somebody who makes sure that the lights are on, that it's maintained and everything. So a flagship operator would be someone that is a principal in this. And then that person could then run out like various containers to allow maybe a monthly sub operator to be in the space or multiple spaces. But I think what we need most urgently is a flagship operator.
When you say flagship operator, we're talking about a retail tenant, like we're talking about a food and beverage, so that's a brewery that comes in, and the brewery basically is an anchor, and then they come in and have everyone else sublease under them, and then they handle the operation. Yeah.
Got it.
That seems like that's the best scenario, because if you come down, if the city were to operate this, you have to have a dedicated staff person.
Yeah, so Commissioner Nieto is asking about, that's gonna cost money, right? So would it be more than the 20 years projected in terms of whether we have a flagship operator? We'd still within the 20-year period, if all goes well, the projected revenues, we'd pay off that amount.
The 7 to 11 millions.
Yeah,
are
would be
going
paid
to-
off still in 20 years?
It's not going to be the right, you consider what you have to pay to run the operation is going to diminish.
So the operator in that instance wouldn't be a fee operator,
Yeah.
they would be a tenant that would be paying you rent and operating it, so. You would maybe get a little bit less rent because you want that anchor and you want to support them and they're doing the management, but it's not a cost on top.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any final questions or comments? We really appreciate the time. I know we probably needed another, 2 hours probably. I know, thank you so much. I think, and then like you said, I appreciate the commissioners and our council members for coming together, because I know it's not easy. But
I know there's another question, but I have a few, maybe I have one comment, and that's on the pillars. The issue with the pillars, I understand the bright colors that we have, the red, but I think we could come up with muted colors. As far as the pillars are concerned, and then use lighting at night to make them stand out differently, so it doesn't not match our downtown in that sense. So that was one comment. In regards.
Could the pillars be circular or cylindrical?
I mean, they could be in design, and we use the rectilinear one because that is the container.
Right, but just to soften the feel, I believe, and match more of what you're looking at. Just
And then the other thing with that, I was thinking in regards to matching the downtown, is we have the old Soledad Hotel. We have a lot of signs that used to exist on the downtown, and I think those could be featured on those pillars to make them match into our downtown. I think that's the idea. In regards to questions, in those operations that you guys have dealt with before, seen, or in your case, you actually operated, Was there ever an opportunity for example, we've got a number of containers, so could there be a possibility of having one container that could be kind of like a ghost kitchen where they utilize and it switches off on a monthly basis or on a weekly basis, just one of those containers? And is that something that could be effective or not? Second, the space that you showed on top, where you showed a space and it had a sign on top and there was seating underneath, could a space like that be utilized instead of just being the sign, but could be utilized for office space where, again, shared space, there's a lot of that happening now. We're seeing it in San Luis Obispo, we're seeing it in Monterey, we're seeing it in Carmel. It's barely creeping into Salinas. Could something like that work where we use that space as a shared space where people can rent it for conferences, meetings, that kind of stuff? And have you seen that happen before in a container village? And I think I'll leave it alone.
Let me take the last question first really quickly. There are 2-floor container projects, but the upper floor needs to be served by an elevator for accessibility.
Yeah, the question about the ghost kitchen, I mean, it's a good idea, and I think that would be a way to really activate this and make it a meaningful part of the community. However, my experience with these kind of operations is somebody needs to be in charge. And so that somebody is the, what I call the flagship operator or the anchor. Anchor operator. Somebody needs to be in charge. Somebody needs to be accountable for cleaning it.
And that's why I was wondering if one space could be utilized like that, since the operator is there. And there are circumstances, for example, in Watsonville where they're doing incubators.
Right.
And this could be kind of that way.
And that was our intent.
And up to 2 or 3, the commissary could be there by a rotating.
Right.
Right.
Got it.
So that's one, hold on.
Just a quick comment.
Councilmember Cabrera, and then Councilwoman Corralejo, and then Commissioner Fuerte.
Just a quick comment, in your projections, do you consider the schedule? Is that throughout the year, mostly in Soledad, after 8 o'clock, there's nobody going around. During the day, there's a lot of people. Right?
Yeah, no reason to go downtown.
Right?
Exactly, there's no, but that's not gonna change the job schedule that we have regularly around here.
For the jobs,
You know, because
I don't go to work.
it just, exactly, but it's.
You're retired.
So we're not fixing this in those who are not working right now.
Just go do both.
Is this projection only including people that are coming out of town, or? Because I don't, I drive around in the night and I don't see that many people that will be.
But I think that's what we're
Yeah.
trying to promote here, that's what we're trying to do is, like in Mexico, you go, in
But
the
that is-
evenings, you go to the parque to
Exactly,
go
that
hang
is-
out and watch a band
that
and
is
drink a
my-
cup of
but
coffee
that
or
is
something.
Yeah, so
But
let's,
that is my question,
yeah,
if that is gonna change, that's not gonna change the people that work in those. They still have to go to work, if they go at 6 o'clock in the morning, they still have to go at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they're gonna.
The other shift, the third,
so,
And if we
so,
put a band out, they're gonna
yeah,
come.
so let's, I want to make sure we're vigilant on time. I apologize. I know it's 6:35. We do want to make sure we respect our public, that is coming or here. So let me go into then, Councilmember Cabrera, your concern was
Yes.
about the individual, the time and
Well, my
when this would be
concern is-
open.
No, my concern
operation?
is that if the projections of income were done based on how
Oh.
many people are coming and
Got it.
considering that people from Soledad are gonna be there every single day, I'm not sure if
No,
that
we
is.
track the ones from 101 as well.
So can we get more details in terms of the projections of the performa? And so we can get that to Councilmember Cabrera. Yeah, okay, so let
I will
me,
tell you that the projections are seasonally adjusted. So we're looking at how adjustments over the course of the year. And also 4 days, it was based on 4 days a week, the whole operation shutting down at 7 p.m. So it would only be a little later.
So they're
on
very
Thursday, Friday,
conservative.
Saturday.
oh, later, got it. Okay,
Yeah.
very conservative. Okay,
Hours.
yeah. Yeah, okay.
There's a lot of granularity here, and I've also looked at how many people from like that might expect versus how many people would expect from
Yeah.
neighboring.
Okay, thank you. And then just the final questions, if you guys have final questions, and then we can go on because we need to start our meeting. But then I also want to make sure if there's any other questions, you're going to be here. The planning commissioners and council members can reach out to both of you. Yeah, okay. Councilwoman Corralejo.
Thank you. Yes, I actually just wanted to publicly acknowledge our community's input and excitement for this project.
Yeah.
I know we had 500 surveys, which is huge. I believe for Parks and Rec, we only had 400, and that was only because there was a very heavy outreach done, especially at the Easter gathering. And of those 575, I believe, or 74 took the time to write comments. They were all positive except for 4, which is less than 5%. So, just wanted to acknowledge our community and to thank them for participating and in our workshops and also in letting us, know how they're feeling about it. And also to thank our wonderful staff in the Economic Development Department and also our Community Engagement Department for all their hard work.
Thank you. Commissioner Fuertes?
Thank you. Thank you for your time and all your work and effort. It is greatly appreciated. You know that, the facade stuff will work itself out, colors, etc. It's all in the plan. One of the things that I just would like to say about the container cities is that I have seen them become very elegant spaces. And I believe that that's what we're moving toward, leveling up and bringing the elegance to our community, the elegance that we do have and the diversity. And so I think as we work through this process together as a team, I think that is what we need to keep in mind. There was he walked away. Mr. Cabrera, but just a concern about bringing people in. Many of us, I being one of them, I travel out of town regularly to go find that elegance and those opportunities for entertainment. And I leave lots of money out there, right? So, to be able to provide this and actually say I can go down the street, I can ride on my bike. I think it's going to be a very good thing for our city and our community. And one of the other things I'd like to address is I would really like to advocate for our young community, our upcoming community. They don't have a lot of news. And one of the things we're talking about, the art, I think we need to look at graffiti as art. It has has become art in many different areas. I think here because of the connotations had over time, but I believe being that we have a container and it's become somewhat of an art district in certain areas, and we're going to bring that here. All right, that culture, why not build that culture? We can look at these very large graffiti artists who have now moved from very hard graffiti to very elegant and widespread graffiti. So why not have our own graffiti artists come out of this area? We have extremely talented young artists. I worked with someone in Fresno. He had a metal art area that was built with containers. And what he did was he built an entire wall for graffiti artists, brought them in, gave them lessons and said, set the rules, you are to respect art no matter what art it is. And I could see that being something we could do here. So I appreciate the time and effort, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for those great comments. And there is funding available to be able to do a lot of those art designs, thankfully, right now. So to be able to capitalize on that, I think it's really critical. So yes, thank you, everyone. Then we want to make sure final comments by
Thank
Brian.
you. This was such a robust discussion. Really appreciate everyone's input. It's very critical. We do need to have direction on the options. There's
Yeah.
3 options. Option 2, it looks like I
Yeah.
have 3 votes for it. So we just need direction on the option that you'd like us to work on so we can refine that.
Yeah, I think we heard option 1 was probably not feasible. So we're down to 2 and 3. And I also think I heard a combination of probably 2 and 3.
Okay.
Being able to integrate some of that.
And
Yeah,
the reason also within number 3 is talking about the micro businesses,
Yeah.
and it gives us more space to get those
Mhm.
incubators going and those type of things if we go with the 3. That's what I'm looking.
Okay.
So I think,
Yeah, both.
so does that provide the direction 2 and 3, kind of a combo looking at the comments that were provided today by both the planning and the city council members?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
With a neutral,
Yeah.
elegant, art
Yeah.
look, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and so just, and the last comment, I think, just in terms of families, right? Because we want to make sure that it is a space for our older adults, because they need the spaces, and many of us left because we didn't have that here. And so I think, as we said yesterday, our population, our medium age is about 36. And so this, we have young families, so being able to make sure that that space also includes some of those elements for our children. Yeah, and our seniors, yeah,
I was gonna,
feeding areas.
I wanted to just show this to everyone. This is a local artist. He posted it on our page. He does regular paint and sells them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Check here.
we have,
Sergio Sanchez,
yeah,
beautiful. I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
can see it from all over. It's just very cultural, very
Yeah.
beautiful.
yeah, we have a lot of great local artists, so I think, we'll be working with already the local artists that exist already, some of those, or agencies, organizations like the Arts Council that already has some potential funding also to be able to provide stipends to our local artists. I think that would be a great idea. So, okay, well, with that, then I will adjourn. Oh, no, let me go back to my notes. Then we will now adjourn. We're gonna join the joint session at 6:41. Thank you, everyone. And then we will just stay here
To quickly open
to
the,
open, yeah.
come back from the recess for the regular council meeting. Announce the closed session, seek public comment on the closed session, and then go to closed session.
Yes. Thank you, Ed, for doing that. So, okay, so we are now then going to come back then. Are we ready? We're ready? Okay, okay. So now we're coming back. Thank you, everyone. We are coming back from our joint workshop with the Planning Commission, and this is now our regular scheduled meeting of April 19th. And we did roll call already. Now we'll open it up for public comments on closed session items. So at this time, any member of the public may address the council on closed session items appearing on the agenda. Today, we have two items. The council will recess to closed session to consider personnel matters pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1, City Manager Recruitment. And the City Council will recess to closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9A1 D1 to confer with attorney regarding pending litigation, which has been initiated formally and to which the city is party, WC claim of Espinosa. So at this time, do we have any comments on closed session items? Okay, we don't. Okay, do we have any comments via Zoom? Okay, seeing none, then we will close the closed session items and we will go into now closed session, and then we will reconvene as soon as we're done, or by 7 o'clock, so we can start the public meeting. So thank you, everyone, for your patience as we work out the kinks for today. joining us as we're reconvening from our closed session item. And thank you so much for the patience with today's joint workshop and then starting a little bit late for our city council, a public portion of our meeting. I will turn this over to our city attorney for report out on our session items.
Yes, on item number 1, city manager recruitment, the council discussed a couple of issues related to the city manager recruitment, but took no reportable action. And so there's no other reportable action to speak about. And on issue number 2, the council approved and gave authority to resolve the workers' comp claim of Espinoza. No other reportable action taken.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to our next item on our agenda, and it is our pledge of allegiance. And if I can have everybody rise, please, and if I can have Vanessa, Aguilar, if you want to lead us on the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry to turn the spot. Okay, so we'll move on to our next item, which is any additions or modifications to today's agenda. Okay, we have none. Then we'll move on to our public comments. So at this time, any member of the public may address the council on items not appearing on the agenda and items of interest to the public. You do have 3 minutes, so if anyone, we'll start with those that are joining us here in the city council chambers, and then you will take it out to those that are joining us via Facebook. You do have 3 minutes, and if you can please state your name and your address for the record, that'd be great. So I'll start with anyone that's joining us here in our chambers. Is there any public comments at this time? Okay, seeing none, then I will take it out to those that are joining us via Zoom. Do we have any public comments? Okay, so seeing none, then we'll close the public comment period at 7:09, and we will move on to our next item on our agenda. And this is our youth council report, and we will have a written report from our youth council that here today with us today.
Hello, good evening. I'm Angelina Flores, and this is the Boulder Youth Council April report. The Boulder Youth Council is excited to welcome the month of April as it signifies the launch of the Accessible Spaces Survey, planning for the community forum, and ongoing partnerships. We're also excited for a much-needed spring break and an opportunity to recharge before the school year begins. We continue to make progress on this year's Accessible Spaces initiative. This month, we want to share the following related to our core focus areas, including awareness and advocacy related to youth wellness and safety in our community and schools. This month, SYC met on Thursday, April 6th, and Tuesday, April 18th to finalize the survey. We aim to have 3 parts to this survey: a needs assessment for youth facilities, an assessment of youth experience and with recreational and academic programming, and an overview of students' experience with digital and performing arts at SUSD. The survey was released to Boulder High School and Main Street Middle School students on today, April 19th. The survey will remain open until the end of the month. We plan to reveal the results and a comprehensive analysis facilitated by the Youth Council during this year's community forum. If you would like to review the survey, please email us and we'll be sure to share the survey with you. We are excited to explore a potential partnership with the City of Soledad and Mayor Ana Velasquez around gun prevention in our community. This month, we met with Mayor Velasquez to explore the Youth Council's involvement in planning a potential town hall on gun violence prevention in our Soledad community. We look forward to sharing more updates soon. We want to thank Mayor Velasquez for the opportunity to engage in this important conversation and collaborate with other city leaders. Our members are working to develop the next issue of our newsletters, which we anticipate to be released this month. For those interested in joining our mailing list, you can find a link to join in our social media. The month of April stands as a figure of light at the end of the tunnel, the light being our awaited community forum. With the development of the Accessible Spaces Survey that will be sent out to our communities, we are formulating the framework for the community forum and differentiating the rules that will be given to each of our members to provide a collaborative voice for our Soledad youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelina, for those great updates, and we are looking forward to the outcome of the survey. It's really good data in terms of what we want to hear the voices of our needs. So thank you for all the work that you guys are doing. Okay, so council, any questions? Okay, thank you so much. So we'll move on to our next item, and we have council presentations. So we do have two presentations today. We do have the proclamation of the City Council of the City of Soledad proclaiming April 2023 as Purple Up for Military Kids Month. And I will turn this over to Council Member Chavez and to Councilwoman Corralejo. And then we do have a certificate that we want to be able to present today for Vanessa Aguilar, who's here with us, as well as her parents. She just got back from France. So we wanted to make sure that we had this opportunity to be able to acknowledge some of her efforts in terms of her athletic, amazing athletic soccer highlights. So I will turn this over at this time to Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you, Mayor. We wanted to make sure that here in the city of Soledad, we proclaimed on behalf of the city council, the month of April as Purple Up for Military Kids. And I apologize to the public, I don't have anything purple except from my coaching. So I didn't want to wear any of that stuff. So yeah, didn't wear it, but we do have our council member, Ben Jimenez, our mayor pro tem, who actually did wear purple. So thank you, Ben, for doing so. So we wanted to recognize Purple Up for Military Kids Month. And so I'm just going to read the first and then the last of our part of our proclamation, so not to take a whole lot of time. Whereas each year, our nation designates April as the month of military child to recognize and thank children of military families that are directly impacted by the deployment of one or sometimes both parents on full-time duty status in military service, including members of the National Guard and reserves on active duty orders. And whereas citizens of Soledad appreciate the sacrifices made by our servicemen and women who defend our country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, children of military families face unique challenges, and we appreciate their strength and sacrifice as they support their enlisted family members at times enduring long periods of separation. So now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Soledad does hereby proclaim the month of April 2023 as Purple Up for Military Kids Month in the City of Soledad. All community members are encouraged to wear purple as a visible icon of support and appreciation for military children and their sacrifice, resilience, courage, and support to their parents who serve to protect our freedoms. The color purple symbolizes all branches of military, as it is a combination of the Army green, the Navy blue, the Marine red, the Air Force blue, and the Coast Guard blue. Wear purple in April, dated this 19th day of April of 2023, and signed by the Mayor, Ana Velasquez. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Chavez, for that, and just really appreciate that. And so we just want to acknowledge everyone. And Soledad, as you know, obviously has support for our military families, and that's, you could see that as you're coming in with our banners. And so many of the foundation and pioneers of the city of Soledad were in the military, in different branches of the military. So thank you for bringing this forth. And so we encourage everyone to wear purple during the month of April.
And we have a lot of families here that belong to military, that are military families or have served in the past. And Councilmember Corralejo, as well as myself and others, were approached to bring forth this proclamation. And so we were just happy to do so for the families that do have their kids that are here, and sometimes both parents and sometimes one of their parents are serving. So thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, just wanted to thank Erica Avila Hernandez for bringing up this proclamation to myself and Councilmember Chavez. Thank you for bringing awareness. And I also wanted to thank the Bocanegra family for their service that they have put into our country and to our city. They were not able to be here today because their daughter is in the Soledad High School swim team, so they're there supporting her. I did, though, just want to thank them for everything that they do, for their sacrifices, and also wanted to thank their children. They were part of our September 11 ceremony of remembrance that we did last year. And their whole family was out there early helping carrying huge heavy signs, and I didn't hear any complaints or anything, and they also donated water and some snacks. So just thank you to them and to all the families that are making sacrifices for our country. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Corralejo, I also want to acknowledge our council member Cabrera, his wife Monica Andrade also served in the military, so I wanted to also acknowledge him and her as well.
I was gonna do that.
Oh, sorry.
I'm actually, yes, my wife was in the army for 8 years, and she's passionate about helping people and helping the fellow veterans and everything. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, then we'll move on to our next presentation, and this is a certificate of recognition that we're going to present to Vanessa and to her family as well, to her mom and her dad. So if we can have Vanessa, if you want to join us at the podium, and then Jose and Lilia, if you guys want to come up with her as well. So we wanted to make sure that we took this opportunity to acknowledge you, Vanessa, and on behalf of the City Council, congratulations on your outstanding athletic achievement, on being selected to play soccer for they call it the U17, right? The under 17 Mexican national team. And she just, recently got back from France. So we're so super excited to be able to hear her story. But just your hard work, your dedication and training is admirable and commendable, and your parents' sacrifice as well. I know that, for many years, they've done that sacrifice to be able to take you back and forth to San Jose and to all these other places to make sure that, you were the best athlete that you could be. And so the City of Soledad is honored to recognize you and your parents as Soledad superstars, and we're super excited to be able to provide this certificate of recognition to you. So we do, if you want to say a few words, or your parents want to say a few words, and then we do also have a representative from Senator Caballero's office who also has a certificate for Vanessa and the family.
I would just like to thank my parents and like my family, friends, and like everyone who just like supported me like through my journey. And like I'd like to like thank my parents as well, because like all the sacrifices they have done for me, like taking me all the way to San Jose and taking me to school there. And it's not easy, but I guess like if I want to be the best, then I need to like do the hard work. And I would like to thank my sister Karina, because she encouraged me and my sister to play soccer, and I wouldn't be here without her like playing soccer, and like I wouldn't have been this far without her.
Oh, that's so sweet. So is your sister here, Corina? Karina, yeah, let's come up here too with the family. That's amazing. She's shy. Oh.
I'd like to thank you guys too, like for supporting me, and
Thank
No,
you.
gracias a todos ustedes por el apoyo que han brindado a mi hija. La verdad es algo bien especial, y sabemos que puede lograr cosas más grandes también, y con la ayuda y el apoyo de ustedes también se puede hacer todo. Y gracias.
Gracias, Jose.
Vanessa, just for the public, what school did you go to that you had to go travel that far away?
I go to Presentation High School. It's in San Jose.
Yeah. And so Vanessa her parents live here, and I know they made the sacrifice for several years to be able to get her there. I know one of the things that we've heard and we know as our council is that we have many great athletes. And how do we really make sure that we're bringing in those scouts to be here, right? To bring in, to notice the talent that we have here locally, because we have so much local athletic talent, and really being able to highlight, how do we bring that highlight for our youth to be recognized for what they're doing. And parents don't have to do that sacrifice, right? I know as parents, we do what we need to do for our kids. But I just, for us, it's just really wanting to make sure that we acknowledge that she's one of us, she's from Soledad, and to be able to have that great opportunity. So how does it feel to be back from France and be back in Soledad?
I mean, it's great. Like just being over there was a great experience for me, and it was really fun. Like being like with my teammates over there and just like supporting, like just experiencing, like, because I'm never going to experience that again, or maybe hopefully, but just maybe having like a great time over there, and like make the best out of it, because it only happens once, so.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you. And so we have Marisa, if you want to have, say a few words, she has a certificate for you all as well.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. It is my honor to present to you, Vanessa, and your family, the certificate of recognition on behalf of Senator Caballero and Assemblymember Robert Rivas. Congratulations on your achievements. We know how difficult it is, especially for young girls. Sometimes the researchers are not as accessible as the man, so congratulations. Y a usted, sus padres, sus hermanas, por el apoyo, y que represente a Soledad y que también sea una motivación para las demás jovencitas que sí se puede. Y le deseamos todo lo mejor en su futuro y que gane muchos títulos con la selección mexicana, así que muchas felicidades y congratulations.
Congratulations. So, council, can we take a picture? I don't know, Lidia, ¿querías decir algo antes de? No,
Con la ciudad, de lo que están haciendo con mi hija y pues está poniendo el nombre más alto de esa edad.
Ya, muchas gracias.
¿Puedo decir algo? En la final que estuvieron jugando en Salinas, mi esposa y mis hijos estuvieron ahí y mi esposa no paró de hablar de cómo juegas. Mi esposa comenzó a jugar a los 6 años, muy joven, y ella y su hermana jugaron mucho tiempo fútbol. Ella fue la primera árbitro que tuvo Salinas en las Salinas del soccer. Toda su familia siempre ha estado envuelta en el deporte. Y quiero que sepas que mi esposa en particular te admira mucho por todo lo que has hecho. Y, perdón, porque yo creo que ella hubiera podido hacer lo que tú has hecho. Y no hay sacrificio grande que tu padre pueda hacer o tus padres puedan hacer cuando con el amor que te tienen. Nosotros los papás no medimos el tamaño del sacrificio, sino el tamaño de la oportunidad que te puede brindar. Muchas felicidades.
Una cosa más. Esto no empezó hace poquito, empezó con la ayuda de ustedes de hace bastante años que viníamos nosotros aquí a las juntas también para los parques. Gracias a todos ustedes por el apoyo que han brindado a nuestros hijos. Y sabemos que hay mucho talento y sí se puede hacer muchas cosas grandes gracias a ustedes.
Gracias, José. Councilmember Chavez.
For me, como dijo el papá aquí, José, todo empezó con ideas de mejorar todos los campos de fútbol aquí, los campos de béisbol, de softball. Hace muchos años. Era la inspiración de ver cómo es que podemos asegurar que haya esos mismos campos de fútbol, de béisbol, de softball para los jóvenes de aquí de esta comunidad, porque lo merecen. Entonces, creo que esas ideas que empezaron hace muchos años, creo que estamos viendo ahorita esos frutos. Y los estamos viendo por donde quiera. Hemos visto a Brenda que estaba jugando ya para los Pumas en México. Hemos visto a otros, por ejemplo, Josiah Freeman, que está ahora en Fresno State, a mi hijo que está jugando en Cal Poly, un montón de jugadores en diferentes partes que estamos viendo esos frutos poco a poco salir de esta comunidad que siempre sabíamos que estaban aquí, pero no tenían necesariamente lo que se necesitaba y estamos todavía trabajando, moviéndose adelante. Gracias a ustedes.
No, gracias.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll say it in English and Spanish. Voy a decir en inglés y en español y lo voy a hacer corto por lo mismo. Pero nomás quería darles las gracias primero de todos ustedes como padres. Sé que como madre yo cuando están en deporte nuestros hijos es difícil. En veces uno se levanta bien temprano, vas desvelado, vas cansado, vas enfermo o enferma. Sé que es muchos sacrificios y muchísimas gracias por apoyar a su hija. Y después, Vanessa, no te quería decir gracias por ser un buen ejemplo para toda nuestra juventud y también para nosotros de adultos, de no olvidarnos que en vez si algo es importante tenemos que trabajar. Y también gracias por poner a Soledad en el mapa, te vi en todas las noticias. I'll say it in English real quick, just wanted to thank Vanessa's parents for all their sacrifices. I know as a mom, when our children are in sports, it's difficult. To, sometimes you go sick, sleepy, tired, hungry. But we do that for our children because we love them. And to Vanessa, just thank you for being a great role model for children, for our youth, for us, adults as well. And thank you for putting Soledad on the map. So proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would like to just echo that as well. I know the sacrifices that you make us very proud by your accomplishment in going over there and representing, the United States, but in a sense, because you're homegrown here, so you are us, you're the United States, and then Mexico. I mean, it's just some of the best soccer, teams around in the world. And so, for the parents, I understand the sacrifice, taking to like volleyball tournaments over that with my daughters and softball, and it takes a lot. And a credit should go out to you and also to your family to support you. And it always takes the oldest one that paves the way, or the oldest one that paves the way, and the other little ones follow, and the little ones follow. So congratulations to all of you. You made us very proud. Appreciate it.
Yes, awesome. And so before we take a photo, I want to acknowledge, you made a reference to your sister. I don't know if you want to say just any last minute words, but thank you so much for encouraging your sister. I know having brothers and sisters that's what it's about, right? We can fight and do all that, but at the end of the day, we support each other, and it's family is really important to us as a community. So I don't know if you want to say any few words for your sister.
I just want to say that I'm so proud of her, like how she achieved and everything, and really like this is like this is like a dream for Vanya, like to be in Mexico and anything. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Can we pause for a minute so we can take a photo? Everyone for your patience. So that was exciting. So we'll move on now to our next item on our agenda, which is our consent calendar. And for today, we have items 6. We have items 1 through 6 on our consent calendar. So at this time, do any members of the public wish to pull an item for our consent calendar for comments or questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, do any members of our council want to pull a consent item for further discussion or comment? Okay, seeing none, then I will entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
First and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously, so we'll move on to our next item on our agenda for tonight, and this is new business. So today we have item B1, acceptance of the City of Soledad's Assessor Agency's audited financial statements for fiscal year 2021 to 2022. And I believe we'll turn it over to our interim city manager.
Mayor, members of the council, you received two different kinds of financial statements, documents. One is the budget, which looks forward. How much money do we think we'll have next year? How should we spend it? And we'll be presenting that to you in a couple of weeks, the budget for the fiscal year. The second kind of document looks backward, the financial statements. What was our financial position as of June 30th, 2022? What were the results of operations in that year? That was going to be my city manager introduction to Mike Howard, our finance director, who at the last minute regrettably can't join us. But he did, if you, with your permission, he did write up about 3 minutes of the presentation that he wanted me to read, and I want to honor him because it literally took him scores of hours working with our auditor to compile the financial statements, and he's proud of his work. So this is what Mike wrote. We're pleased to present the City of Soledad and successor agency audited financial statements for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022. He would refer you to the independent auditor's report. There is an opinion that has now been moved to the opening paragraphs, and the second paragraph is what he considers to be the most important part. Quote, in the opinion of the auditors, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the city as of June 30th. And the respective changes in financial position, and where applicable, cash flows thereof for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. Only Mike would think that's important, but that's important because it's a clean opinion. And that's what we're looking for when we have our statements audited. Moving on in the statements, the general fund is presented on pages 6 through 8 of the financial statements. On page 8, you can see that the city finished the fiscal year with $1.8 million operating surplus. This was due to continued strong property tax and sales tax revenues and savings, that is money not spent in the operating departments. As we discussed at the mid-year, the fiscal year surplus was also due to capital projects budgeted in that year, but not yet completed until the current fiscal year. On page 6, you can see the breakdown of the general fund balance of $9.1 million. We have demonstrated and reported the $1.5 million council reserve, which with your recent action has now been modified to $2 million, and the $1.8 million reserved for future general fund capital projects. The enterprise funds are presented on pages 10 through 12, and all funds are operating in accordance with the plan with no concerns. Debt covenants were met for both the water and sewer funds. The successor agency is presented on pages 15 and 16. The successor agency is a private purpose trust, meaning the City of Soledad's successor agency to the former redevelopment agency is basically a trustee of the funds for the state of California. As a reminder, our last and final obligation payment schedule was accepted and approved by the Department of Finance beginning with that fiscal year 22. The notes and all other special revenue funds are presented in the remaining pages, and there are no issues to highlight with those funds. Following the audit financial statements for this year, not every year, is the so-called single audit. The city is required to have a single audit due to federal grant expenditures exceeding $750,000. The grants examined were rental and utility assistance grants, as well as the CDBG business loan grants. Mike would like to thank Tensia, who I don't think is here, of the economic development staff, for her assistance with the very detailed audit of those programs. The earlier audit statements were based on tests and sometimes sampling. For the single audit, they look at every single transaction. No discrepancies were found regarding the administration of those programs. Next is in the book, in the report is the management letter. There were no issues highlighted in that report. The management, if you get something in a management letter, it means that there are concerns about internal controls. We've had none, so we're pleased that the auditor found that. And we had no disagreement with the auditors during the performance of the audit. And finally, is the auditor's letter of the revenue of measures Y and I, and measure S. And Mike, thanks you for the opportunity to present the annual financial statement.
Thank you, Ed, for providing that presentation on behalf of Mike, and Mike isn't here, but I just want to say thank you for all his efforts, and I know that the last couple of years, you know, the city has fiscally been sound, and Mike has a lot to do with that, has found us some money that we didn't, you know, that we didn't anticipate, so I just want to say thank you, Mike, for your diligence and making sure that the city continues to be fiscally sound, and we continue to ensure that we have funding to be able to set aside you know, for any other emergencies or the funding that the council can determine how to use. So just really appreciate all of that, the work. I will open it up for members of the council if there's any comments or questions, and I'll start with Councilmember Cabrera.
No.
Councilmember Chavez.
I don't have any questions. My comments are, I think, you know, looking at the letters that were stated by our CPA, Bryant Jolly, I think everything looks great. So different from 12 years ago.
Yeah, thankfully. Councilwoman Corralejo.
I don't have any questions, just have a couple comments. Just want to thank Mike for his work. And also wanted to thank Ed for taking the time yesterday to review the information with me. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez.
Just a couple of comments. Read through the whole document myself and obviously went to the letters themselves that came from the auditors and to indicate that there was no problems with that. However, it's also unfortunately that for whatever reason Mike couldn't be here. It's always good to have that individual here before us to ask those questions as well, because there's a couple changes that occurred within there that just had some questions that may have been highlighted.
Please feel free to ask them. I might be able to answer them.
I'm good. Okay. Thank you though. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And I think for me, this is the first time I actually don't reach out to Mike. Usually I'm always reaching out to him to have him explain to me. And after several years of doing that, I think I at least kind of managed to understand, especially looking at that letter that we get, and it's a fair outcome, and that's really critical. So I just, you know, again, if you couldn't be here, but we want to thank him for the due diligence and preparing these, especially the single audit that's pretty intense and pretty detailed. So thank you, Mike. Thank you, Ed, for doing that. So if we don't have any questions, let me take it out to the public to see if there's any members of our public that have any comments on item B-1. So any members of the public that are joining us here in the chambers? Okay, any members, let me take it out to our members of the public that are joining us via Zoom. Do we have any members of the public? Okay, so seeing that there's no comments, then I'll bring it back to council for a motion to accept the City of Soledad Successor Agency audited financial statements for fiscal year 2021-22.
I'll go ahead and make that motion to accept the audit.
I'll second it. Okay, so we have a first and a second. And all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. So we'll move on to our next item on our agenda, which is item B-2, resolution number 5933, a joint resolution of the City Council of the City of Soledad, City Council and Board of the Successor Agency to the Soledad Development Agency, Board of the Soledad Housing Authority, approving an employment agreement for City Manager, Successor Agency Director, Housing Authority, Executive Director Services with Megan Hunter, and I will turn this over to our City Attorney.
Yeah, I'm a little under the weather today as well, so I'm going to try to keep this brief. But basically, for the since January, the council has been actively involved in the recruitment of a new city manager. That process entailed retaining a consultant, Coffin Associates, to help us in the preparation of the brochure, to solicit applications for the position, review of the applications, and then we did 2 sets of interviews that you had. The city was very fortunate to have an extra good pool of applicants from which to choose, and finally had focused in on Megan Hunter. Megan has been in public service for over 20 years, and most recently has served about 8 years in her current position as a Director of Community Development with the City of Salinas. Staff was then tasked to negotiate an agreement with Megan on somewhat of an expedited basis. It was a little bit like speed dating last week as we exchanged emails and phone calls and so forth, but we managed to do it it took a little bit of time, but it was not a strenuous task. We were able to negotiate freely, and I got some input, thankfully, from the mayor and the mayor pro tem, which was very helpful. And I want to express my appreciation to them making themselves available to provide some input. So the whole council has had the opportunity to review the proposed employment agreement as part of the agenda this evening, and again in closed session. And so staff is recommending that the council adopt resolution 5933, which, if approved, will approve an employment agreement with Megan Hunter for the city manager, successor agency director, successor housing agency director, and the housing agency executive director services.
Thank you, Mike, for that.
I should note that Megan is here tonight if you want to ask any questions, and come step up to the podium. So.
Yes, thank you for that. So we do have Megan here, and we're really excited. So Megan, if you can come to the podium. I know at this time, we've all had an opportunity to look at the contract agreement, and so we're excited to have you here. And as Mike said, it took a while, and I think the council did an amazing job in being part of the interview process, and having also going out to our community and making sure that there was at least that opportunity for our residents also to give input in regards to what type of city manager we were looking for. So I will turn it over to you, Megan.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you, the mayor and the city council, for putting your trust in me. I'm very excited about this opportunity. I'm excited to be working with what seems like an amazing staff. I got to meet some of them tonight in the community to carry out the vision for the city of Soledad. And I promise to do what I can to always put Soledad in the forefront of what needs to be done, and to really consider it moving forward. So I'm very excited, and I can't wait to hit the ground running because I know there's a lot of great things going on, as witnessed by the joint session you had with the planning commission. Very exciting things going on. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Megan. So I want to open it up for any comments from the council, and I will start with Mayor Pro Tem.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. Yes, it was a long, lengthy process that we utilized a recruiter with to go out there and try to cast a wide net so we can ensure that we had a qualified individual that we could attract, and somebody that matches their tool set and their skill level where we'll see the community going in the future. And for me, Megan was that person after it was all said and done. So I'm excited about having her join our team. I think she's going to be a good fit, and she comes with some good ideas that we're going to utilize and move this community forward, and also understanding our history and understanding who we are and what we are to get us there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilman Corralejo.
Oh, yes, just wanted to welcome you to Soledad, Megan. And I also wanted to say you're coming in at a very exciting time, like you said, just with the joint meeting that we have. It's definitely a very exciting time for Soledad, and also just letting you know regarding the staff that you met. You're inheriting a very good staff. We have a very good culture when it comes to, our staff here at City Hall. So I'm sure that you will enjoy it. So welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Chavez.
Yeah, I think to reiterate, I think what Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez mentioned, the process I think was wide. I think we narrowed it down, and I think we had some really, really good candidates. And it was just a process that I felt was a really good process. And I think that all of the council participated, and really we had some lengthy discussions trying to figure out how we were moving forward, who we were moving forward with. And I'm excited to have Megan on board here in our city. And I think that the way she will complement the staff that we have and what we will be able to do with the city, I'm excited about that because I think as in the presentation we had earlier with the planning commission, talking about something completely different, something completely new that was brought to us by staff is that excitement that we have going forward in this community. So thank you, Megan, and thank you for our community and our city council to be able to work together to bring forth this person to be our new city manager.
Thank you, Councilmember Chavez. Councilmember Cabrera?
Yes, welcome, and thank you for being here today. For me, it was an incredible process. There were very interesting candidates, and we, at least for my case, I think it was very small details that separate you from the other candidates, and I want you to know that we are putting our trust in you, and you have a great team, incredible team, and I don't doubt that you and the team will do great things for our city. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. I think for me, again, welcome. I know you having, been a public servant, continue to be a public servant, but working obviously 20 years for the city of Salinas. I know how critical it is. So I think for us, as we were looking, as everybody said, it was a really robust process. And I think I just want to also make sure that our employees, our city employees know that the council made a decision based on what we thought was the best candidate to really move us forward. We're entering into 100 years, our next 100 years, our next centennial, and Soledad has really transformed from what it was, even 20 years ago. And so there's so much potential and capacity, and we've seen from our athletes and what are some of those resources that they need to our families to be able to provide more venues, to have events, and to be able to make sure that people don't have to leave Soledad, that they can, they feel that we're investing in them. So I think with that in mind and being able to look at the possibilities and the potential, I just want to make sure our employees know as well that it was really understanding who could bring that to our city, but also who would be able to support our employees. And like I said, having been an employee for 20 years, I know, city managers come and go, but we really want to make sure that the city managers that stay here and that really create and cultivate and foster that team, foster that team environment and really support our employees that have been here for many years. And how do we also support them in their transition and where else they want to be, and really look at growing our own as well, and being able to make sure that we have those succession plans for those employees that are here that want to be the next managers, right? That looking at those opportunities, I think it's really important, especially in local government. So I'm excited to have you on board, and to our employees. This is, we've come from a couple of years of instability, and we're really looking forward to stability and really making sure that there's so many projects that the city has, and how do we move those forward with a different vision in mind. And so I'm really excited to be able to welcome you to the city of Soledad.
If I may, Mayor, who's the young man with you?
Oh, just my husband. Do you want to come here so you can introduce them and we can have them here?
He's like.
Also, our public.
Well, I'm so rude. I mean, I'm only as good as the support behind me. This is my husband, Freddie Benitez.
Hi, my name is Fred Benitez, and I have a PhD in supported housing.
Oh,
That's really good. I don't have a mask. I don't have a mask for that.
Well, welcome both. Welcome to the city of Soledad.
You just raised the bar for
Absolutely. So I just want to open this up also to members of our public before we bring it back to the council for approval. Any members of the public want to make any comments? And I can't see any of our individuals that are joining us via Zoom. Okay, seeing none, then I will bring it back to our council to entertain approval for item B-2.
So move.
Okay, so,
Second.
okay, so we have a motion, first and a second on the floor, all in favor, say aye. Aye, any opposed? Okay, motion carries, congratulations again. And so, council, we'll move on to.
One thing I'd be remiss also if I didn't say thank you to Fran. Fran was a
Yes,
huge
yes.
part of making sure that everything ran smoothly here.
And as Mayor Pro Tem said, our process was robust and different from at least the past city manager recruitments that we've had with, you know, just, you know, the videos and, you know, a lot of the workshops that we had, also a lot of the engagement from the council as well, and a lot of input. So, you know, we really created this, I think, elevated our recruitment process. So thank you so much, Fran, for that support.
And through the chair, I know we'll have, later on have an opportunity to thank our interim
Yes,
manager.
yes. So we'll have them here.
Well,
Me too. Me too.
So
He's
you
not
can
getting
be
away
here for our
with it.
next.
Oh, yeah.
But thank you, but yes, Mayor Pro Tem, thank you so much. We also want to acknowledge that in the interim process, you know, since January, right, we did hire Ed Tweez as our interim city manager, and thank you so much, Ed, for helping to maintain that stability through this process as we secured our city manager. So just want to say thank you. You're not leaving yet, so we can do our acknowledgements to you at the next meeting, but thank you so much for your support and helping us continue and helping the city continue to move forward.
Through the chair. And since we're handing out thanks, which I totally love, I just wanted to also thank Brian, our development department manager, for filling in the gaps for those times when we didn't have an interim city manager. So I'm very thankful for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank everybody at the city for having that flexibility as we move forward through this process. So, okay, well, thank you again. Welcome to the city of Stallgate. We're super excited. And so we'll move on to our next item on our agenda, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to finish a little bit earlier today. So we'll go on to city reports. And I'll start with my city reports really quick. I did attend the unveiling of the mural, the first ever swim meet that we had here for the Soledad swim team on February 6th. So I think that was, you know, we heard from the chair of the board last time, from Mr. Pete Mesa. So we're super excited that, you know, as Councilwoman Corralejo said, the meets are here now. So we're super excited that we're able to host those here. And it was really exciting to see, you know, that happen for the first time. And also there was an unveiling of a mural, a local artist that at the pool did a really amazing mural. So if anyone hasn't seen it yet, please go out there and look at it. And these are the kind of things that we're talking about, bringing more art into our community and spaces. She did an amazing job. And then also on the 6th, I was able to go out to the cleanup to thank our volunteers that did a fantastic job. And I just want to say shout out to the Salinas downtown street teams, because they did an amazing job cleaning up. Took them several days to do that. I know that we are going to get a report. I was able to talk to one of the representatives, and they're going to provide us with a report, an outcome report, so that way we can, as a council, we can look at that. And some of the assistance that they provided, also, they were also providing support services to our homeless individuals that were there. So just want to say thank you. And then on the 10th, I attended the special meeting of the COC as part of the Leadership Council. So just kind of some of the brief highlights on this one. They did talk about some of the HAP money, which is the money that comes from the state for outreach and coordinations. One of the discussion items was coordinating rental rehousing and setting aside 92,000 of the interest that came in from the HHPA, the HAP funding, to approve a policy to use emergency responses for rental assistance for the Pajaro emergency. So they were able to provide support to over 2,000 families that were affected, and many of those were undocumented. So there was that set aside to be able to utilize those funds for the families in Pajaro. So just want to say thank you to the Leadership Council. and for the Chair Alejo, who really is pushing a lot of support for the residents of Pajaro. And then I also attended the MST meeting on April 10th. And just one of the highlights there as well is the our board approved the free fare zone in Pajaro through June 30th, 2023. So that was another support as well from our community to our families in Pajaro. And then on the 18th, as was mentioned yesterday, I was able to meet with our youth council to be able to discuss some of the details of the town hall and be able to partner and collaborate with them. So really appreciative for that. And then the last week on the 11th, I have to remember the dates, apologize, I didn't write them down. But we did last week, the 12th through the 14th, council member Cabrera and myself were at the California League of Cities Summit. So there is a lot of information that was provided to us. There was a joint session that we had with the county, I'm trying to remember the CSAC, with CSAC, which is the county
Supervisors Association.
Yes, and so that was really good because there was that joint meeting talking about homelessness and housing, which was the big discussion for us. So we were able to meet, Councilmember Cabrera and myself were able to meet with Senator Caballero and also with representatives from Assemblymember Rivas's office to talk about some of our needs also, especially in some of our needs around housing, homelessness, and some of the needs that we have here. So there's a lot going on. I did bring back some information that I'll provide to the council, and then you also got some information that gives you an overview of all of the different legislation that the Cal Cities is supporting, and the big pushes around housing and homelessness, and being able to secure $3 billion from the state to ensure that cities and counties are being supported, because they are the ones that are tasked with producing the housing and also supporting homelessness. So that was a big push. And then $1 billion also for unfunded mandates. So that was another request to the state. Obviously, we know that there's a lot of mandates that we get as local entities, but they come without any of those, without any funding. So the request was $1 billion from the state to be able to come to the city. And there is a link where we can look at the amount that comes back to each of the cities, and the city of Soledad is included there as well in terms of how much of that money and from the $1 billion would come back to the city. So I want to say thank you again, because it was a great opportunity for us to be able to gather more information. And when we talk about our legislative priorities, I think I'm excited to be able to come back to the council to be able to establish that and move forward and really support some of the legislation that is that's going to support the work that we do here. The last item I know they talked about was in regards to fentanyl. So there's a lot of bills that are out there in regards to fentanyl. There is some discouragement about the legislature not taking action. So there's going to be a lot of a push to have them take action on some of the fentanyl bills, given some of the staggering numbers of how many people have overdosed in California because of fentanyl use. So that was another component that was heavily discussed. And I do have information that I'll forward to you all. Thank you. So with that, I will turn it over to Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you. I don't have much to report on. The Transportation Agency in Monterey County will be meeting next week, so I'll get the report at the next meeting. And then the South Salinas Valley Broadband Authority will be meeting tomorrow on that. So again, I'll report on that at the next meeting. And in regards to the first swim meet in Soledad, I thought that was pretty exciting. I actually videoed the first ever match, if you want to call it that way, that happened. So that first takeoff they launched off of the new blocks. I got to film all of that, so I have that, and we were able to post a little piece of that on our social media. So congratulations to all of those swimmers and all our athletes in our community as well. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Cabrera.
Just a comment on the conference. I enjoyed it a lot, and it seemed like it was a long conversation. Because it was not just the workshops that we attended, it was the communication, the conversations with other officials, and the ideas that come out of this meetings or these workshops are so incredible. I liked one in particular that it was talking about our role as city council, and I enjoy it because it felt like it was something that will bring my skills, and I will be able to provide a better service for my community. So it was an incredible opportunity for leadership, looking and learning from people that are working hard to provide opportunities for their communities. And I think that we can reflect that. And it will be awesome that our staff could also participate in different activities like that, so that we can interchange ideas with other communities, community leaders. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to note that our community engagement manager, Jesus Valenzuela, did meet us as well. So he did attend the conference as well. And so I'll turn it over to Councilwoman Corralejo.
I have no report at the time, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez.
I know that we just meet tomorrow as soon as I was authority our monthly meeting.
Okay, thank you. So we will move on to Councilmember praises. I'll start with Mayor Pro Tem.
You know, I would like to start just saying, and I don't do this real often, and I probably should do it more often, and other council members do, but I want to praise staff during this transition. Because I know for anybody, when you're working in a government agency and you're changing at the top, there's, you get nervous, what's going to happen, what's going to change. And so I can say a commitment for me and from myself is to them is that I believe we have an excellent staff, and we'll continue to move forward as an organization, and we brought in a leader to assist us to get to those goals. And so again, my number is available. Any questions that you might have, and what I have with the other directors, and I've spoken with them about certain items, what they're concerned about during the transition or in the process itself. I am available. So I want to thank staff for the process. That's all I have.
Yeah, thank you. Councilwoman Corralejo.
Yes, I have three places actually that I wanted to acknowledge today. The first one was CAL FIRE. Our chief just wanted to thank him for his outreach for our businesses. I know he's going to start doing the fire safety inspections again, and he's huge when it comes to his relationships with local businesses, and so he's going to be giving presentations and helping them to prepare. So I really appreciate that outlook that he does in the partnership. And then second, I wanted to give praises to Patricia Lopez, who's the owner of Motel 8. And she was acknowledged recently, received recognition from the Housing Resource Center in Salinas. And the recognition was because for the last 4 years, she has been partnering with them and offering a space or a room for one to two families usually. And these are families that are in transition from, maybe being in shelters or being homeless to finding their permanent housing. So that's huge. And, I'm glad that she's putting her part in to make an impact in our community. And then my last praise is to Lolita's ice cream owners, Longino and Maria Castro. Just want to say congratulations on serving our community for 30 years. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Congratulations. So we should have certificates for those kind of recognitions, especially when it's 30 years of service. Yeah, so maybe we can invite them to come to the council meeting and be able to acknowledge them. Councilmember Chavez.
I don't think I have any praises in particular, but I want to ditto what Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez mentioned as far as staff's concerned. it is not easy to know to feel like there's no leadership there, or there's this unknown happening and not knowing what's happening and wanting to know what's happening. So it's a tough situation to be in. So yeah, praise our staff to going through all of this process that's been going on since December for us, really, even maybe before then. And so thank you to them. And as far as Lolitas is concerned, yesterday, that's where I went before our joint meeting. And that's what I was drinking, was from Lolitas. So I won't go from there.
We'll invite to our next council.
Yeah, I didn't bring any for any of you guys, sorry. Tamales for everybody.
Yeah, Councilmember.
I have actually a comment on two people that I want to praise here. First, I want to make a comment on the fentanyl. That is not something that is going on outside the United States. It's going on here as well. We had a couple of people that overdosed already in this town, and we had a young man with a prominent future that got overdosed, I think, last year. So that is something that is danger. It's a danger for our kids. It's a danger for our community. And I wanna reach out to everybody. Be vigilant with your children. Make sure that nothing like that is happening, and let's find ways to educate people about this dangerous drug. I don't remember having, in the 34 years or 37 years that I've been around here, I don't remember having a drug that has an impact before. I think it was in the 80s for crack, but now this one is very powerful, and we used to hear about things happening outside, but it's close to home. So let's be vigilant about it. The other thing that I wanna, and I do wanna praise this individual, because in the last game of the Soledad Aztecs, there was a kick that was very far, almost from the middle of the field, and I think his name is Ivan Salcedo. He has pretty good chance, and I heard a lot of good things from a couple of his coaches. And I think that I am taking advantage that I saw him, that I talked to a couple of the coaches to say that there is not just one person. We continuously have prominent athletes in Soledad. So for Ivan, we hope that he has a great future and good opportunities for this coming year. And the last thing, this is my bias. I want to praise my wife because of the service, her service in the Army, and the service of in the community that she does. Like I said, is that she's always focusing in how to help individuals without thinking about it. And I think that I want to praise her publicly. I hope I have a beater when I get there. She's listening.
You were ready for the PhD. I'm gonna drop down.
Yeah, see, education.
Yeah, no, thank you, Councilmember, I covered it up for that. Mine, I just, again, just for our staff, like I said, I come from being working in local government, and I know it's not easy transition. It's something that obviously being in local government you expect, but I know it's not easy, especially, the stability that some of the stability that we created here in Soledad. So just want to say, again, also acknowledge our team, and just to say again, as we were looking at the best candidate, we were looking at what was in the best interest of our community, but also in the best interest of our employees to be able to continue fostering some of the culture that exists here. But I do want to have one specific person in mind that I do want to say, praise Gama, who's been here for like ever in the city of Soledad. But I want to praise them because, you know, our employees go above and beyond, and I know it's not easy coming from public service when you have to work on a weekend and you've already done your due diligence of working every day. Sometimes it makes it really difficult, but I saw him in church and I saw him handing out, the surveys that, we were asking our community to complete for the recreation. And so I just want to say thank you, Gama, for being out there on a Sunday after every mass to be able to ensure that you were handing out, you know, the surveys and that people were aware of that. So again, you know, these are the kind of community leaders that we have and the kind of employees. So just want to thank him for his service and for his commitment to the city of Soledad. Okay, so we'll move on to our next items, and which is our city manager's report. And I know we gonna turn it over to Ed if there's any questions.
I had a few items I'd like to discuss first. I had already made a commitment to Megan and now make it to you to ease her transition into the position. Both before she starts and afterwards, when I won't be on the clock, but I'm still available to assist. That's my professional obligation to you and to her. I hope you enjoyed the light agenda that you requested tonight.
Thank you.
Because the next meeting will not be light.
We'll be ready.
And one of the things on it will be is the legislative platform that we've discussed so many times before, whose purpose is to establish your policy objectives about legislation so that we can respond quickly as legislation gets amended and introduced and amended. We have, you're aware that you've approved an RFP for the solid waste franchise. 5 companies have expressed formal interest with letters of intent. And the process has begun now with the bidders conference and answers are already going back and forth. So that will be coming to you in a couple of months. Wanted to advise you that the police chief and I have been asked to serve on the school safety committee. And my hope is that the next city manager will be able to join as well. That's the school safety committee is including things like drug use and availability, including violence, but a series of other things that affect safety at school as well. There are opportunities for us to work together with the schools on that. And finally, Mike Howard, who I told you regretted not being able to be here tonight, sent me a text and authorized me to say he regrets it because of medical issue. That's what's keeping him from being here. He's available to Mike. I'm sorry to Ben to answer any questions that you may have. And because of the presentation tonight, I want the record to reflect he owes me a Diet Pepsi.
It will reflect on the record. Thank you.
Do we have a motion for that?
Let the record.
Yeah, thank you, Ed, for that, and thank you for following up on some of those items that we had suggested. So I will, if there's no comments, I will move it on to future agenda items, and I'll start with with Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez.
None.
Okay, Councilwoman Corralejo? None. Councilmember Chavez?
Just 2 items I'd like to see if we could do a proclamation at the next meeting for the Small Business Week. And then also a proclamation for Mental Health Awareness Month.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Cabrera?
I would like to see if there's any way that we can coordinate or staff coordinate efforts with Ms. Pantoja, high school counselor, to develop a trade union fair, career fair. I know that we had a career fair for different professions, but I would like to put together one with local trade unions for the future. I know for the electricians, they have a admission test in August, so I would like to see that more people get informed about those opportunities and be able to be prepared for those exams that are coming on this at this summer. I believe that we also have the desalinization plan in process, maybe within 4 years or so. We have to start looking in the possibility to bring that kind of education to our residents so that they can be able to find jobs that provide not only $30,000, but something more concrete and more robust for their families.
Thank you, Councilmember Cabrera, for that. So we'll note that in terms of the, I know we've had other career fairs, but being more specific to that, so thank you. Okay, so I have a few just in terms of, and maybe this is a budget item, but the basketball courts, I want to make sure I don't forget about that. I know as we're doing progress on our, on our park, I know we have talked about the basketball courts, and I just want to make sure that we don't forget about that, and maybe that's an item to bring it into the budget workshop. And then talking about the budget coming, I would like to have budget workshops. I know we've talked about going out to our community and being able to ensure that we're hosting budget workshops to inform our residents of how the budget works. What are some of those items that, we have discretion in terms of our general fund money? What are some of the other items, obviously, that are restricted, but just getting their input and getting information also to what's our budget look like this year, and, make sure that they're part of the process and they're also commenting, and their input is important as well. And then the other, this is a comment on the redistricting committee. I did hear that there were some, I don't know if everybody was notified in regards to the meetings that we did have with the redistricting and what the process was. I thought when we had discussed the committee that we formed, that they were going to be supporting the outreach efforts for the redistricting workshop. So I had heard, at least from my representative, that he was not contacted. So I just want to make sure there is a process that the people that we assigned to be part of, or that we appointed to be on those committees, that are aware of these workshops and are helping to do some of the outreach as well, to make sure that we have good representation from our community members. So I don't know if anybody else had that.
In response, so we did have 2 workshops as directed by the council, one in Spanish, one in English. The one in Spanish was more well attended than the one in English. And
Yeah,
having had those workshops, the next step is for the committee now to meet and do its work. So the community appointed an advisory committee that's now going to work on the maps and give you a recommendation.
okay, but I thought the advisory committee was also gonna be a part of the process to be able to.
They were invited to the workshops,
They were invited?
but they weren't they weren't advisory committee meetings, they were
No,
workshops for
yeah.
the community.
Yeah, but to also help with the outreach, right? Because we wanted to make sure it was inclusive and we had as many people participating, and my hope was, I thought that's the purpose why we had included them from the beginning, to make sure they were part of the process.
Jesus isn't here, but I know he was active in trying to, in fact, he was attended the workshops, he was active in trying to get the word out. And was pleased that we had the participation that we did, as I said, in the Spanish workshop, not so much in the English only.
Yeah,
workshop.
okay, well, just for clarity, I think, because I was informed that they didn't know, and I just want to make sure that we have, I know we talked about this in the past, so that there is a process, and that they know also what they're going to be doing, and what the committee is the reason and the purpose for the committee. So just want to make sure that's there.
Through the chair, sorry, do you have like an estimate amount, like just off the top of your head, of how many attendees we had for each workshop?
I think it was 5.
I think it was 6 to 8 in the one, and perhaps only 1 or 2 in the second.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very low attendance, and I know we had said to
So
our
I think
community.
council members have high expectations of whether the community at large is interested in this issue, and that may not be the case.
Well, and if it's not the case, I think for us, we want to make sure that this is a big change for our community members, and that they're aware that this change is coming. For us, I think, or at least for me, I'll speak on my behalf. I want to make sure that our community is aware, and that their input is taken into consideration. Because this is a big change, and that, for me, it's, look, I want to make sure we're doing our due diligence, and that more people are aware than not of the changes that are coming. So I'll leave it at that.
And through the chair, I know that I invited my representative. They informed me that they were out of town on that weekend beforehand, so I knew that they weren't going to be able to make it, but I did inform my representative. And in addition to that, I did receive one of the flyers on my door from folks that were walking and dropping off flyers about the meeting. So I know there was some, in addition to whatever was done on social media, I'm sure there was other ways that they could reach out.
Yeah, no, I got it too. So, okay. So then the other one, you talked about, you're bringing back the youth violence prevention plan. Then you're working with the chief on that. My other, I want to make a comment also in terms of some of the other events that we had. I think in the past we had a calendar, and I don't know if we still have something on our website. But there's been a lot of different events, and I just want to praise our police department because I know they've had a lot of citizens police academies and they've had a lot of different events, but I also want to make sure that the council also has the opportunity to be able to know what events are happening that are part of the city and that are city driven. And I know we've gone back and forth on how that is communicated to us before our community engagement would give us on the reports. Here are all the events that are happening for the different departments, so that way we're aware of that. I don't know if the easiest thing is to have a calendar that we have as part of our website where our departments are putting that information there. And then that way, as a city council and also for our residents, any events that are taking place that are spearheaded by the city, then those are included in that master calendar and that calendar. That's an option, that way I know for us stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So is the information included?
Yeah.
So all of the events,
That's where the community engagement, that's the first place they go to post stuff when they find out that something's coming up, including city council meetings, they have events, everything. It's on the home, if you go to the
Community
homepage,
events
it's
as well.
about our events, it's a calendar.
We'll look at, see whether it can be improved.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, because I think it's not just for us, but also for our community members, that it's an easy location for anything that's related to the city and spearheaded by the city that's there. And then that's upon us, right, to be able to look at that calendar. So those are my comments. And if there is no other items, then we adjourn this meeting at 8:20.